Chronicles of the Stellar Mecha War. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 601, Uncontrolled Assistance. This is when others were still confused. ZHU Kunjin spoke first. Our Master Kaiensu. How do you know this is your Master Kaiensu? The speaker asked, while watching the video playing back on the screen. Isn't Master Kaiensu a little black cat? Although both have all black fur. But the introduction picture of Kaiensu shared by ZHU Kunjin before was clearly a kitten. The giant beast was of unknown height, with shiny black fur all over its body, lush mane on its head, long and hanging down to its chest, thick limbs, and a tail as long as a whip. From a distance, it had nothing to do with a cat, more like a super mutated giant lion. ZHU Kunjin sighed secretly. He didn't recognize it at first. But the staff of the information department of the Special Affairs Office were really quick. As soon as Master Kaiensu appeared, they enlarged and decomposed the video. He easily saw the familiar golden bell. The bell was hidden in the long mane, and it was not easy to find it due to the angle. But ZHU Kunjin was so impressed by the bell that he immediately recognized it when he saw the pattern on it. This should be the true form of the heaven-devouring beast. ZHU Kunjin was not really sure. After all, Master Kaiensu had never shown any other form except the appearance of a little black cat. The kitten may just be convenient for walking. The video of the centipede being swallowed was still playing repeatedly on the screen. It took only 2 seconds, so fast that almost everyone thought it was an illusion. Look, in the end, this place did not disappear, but turned back into the appearance of a kitten and left. ZHU Kunjin quickly played the last black dot at the end of the video, which would be ignored by everyone if they didn't look at it specifically. Compared with the huge body just now, it was as small as a louse on its body. Everyone's eyes were high up. Who would have thought there would be such a change? So, the heaven-devouring beast really has the ability to swallow. The general was basically sure. It should be. People used to give names more straightforwardly. ZHU Kunjin replied, since it is called the heaven-devouring beast, even if it can't really swallow the sky and the earth, its ability to swallow should be extraordinary. ZHU Kunjin couldn't run to ask Master Kaiensu at this time. Not to mention that he just helped solve a big problem. Even if it was normal, Master Kaiensu would not care about such a problem. Like the gentleness of Mr. Kaien and the frequent anger of the eldest brother, Master Kaiensu also has his own label, aloofness. It always likes to be alone and doesn't want to be confined to one place. It also ignores people, all depending on its mood. I originally thought that cats have this personality, but now it seems that it is obviously the aloofness of the divine beast. In this case, our chances of winning are greater, right? Someone couldn't help but be happy. The god of luck is still on his side, and what he lacks will come. ZHU Kunjin looked at the world map of the analog signal synchronized by the space agency and didn't say anything. What's the problem? The chief asked. To be honest, Master Kaiensu's appearance can indeed solve some of our crises, ZHU Kunjin said with a wry smile, but the boss always does things as he pleases. Everyone understood that this swallowing beast was not controlled by orders. Didn't you give it the order to come to Sigio City for support? The chief frowned. It's a good thing to have a strong combat support, but uncontrolled support will also make them more difficult and passive. Of course, it's definitely better than nothing. Of course not. How can I tell them to do anything? ZHU Kunjin smiled humbly. These two are people who can't be invited on weekdays. I see that the eldest brother listens to your instructions. Someone was puzzled. He looks even harder to talk to. Kaiensu seems to have taken the initiative to help, right? Why doesn't he listen to the instructions? The eldest brother is completely thanks to Xingqian. He is now equivalent to helping Xingqian to fight, and listening to the instructions is also temporary. If you don't believe it, wait until Xingqian is better, and then you can see if you can call him. ZHU Kunjin shook his head. As for Kaiensu, in order to get it to come back to help, didn't you see that I did that just now? He didn't care about exposing his shortcomings at all, but it's back, and it's busy and it's helping. We want the big guys who have lived for thousands of years to listen to us. Honestly, don't be angry. I don't think we are worthy. Don't say ZHU Kunjin speaks harshly. Many times, time can bring the precipitation of experience. They have only lived for a few decades, and their ages are not even a fraction of those big brothers. They are deployed in a unified manner, just for the convenience of action. But at present, with such a big gap in strength, they only rely on high-tech means to detect and put out fires everywhere. Which of those big brothers who have lived for thousands of years is stupid? Not to mention that their means and magical powers are not comparable to them. If it weren't for the fact that the eldest brother was unwilling to use his brain and just wanted to be a pure worker, ZHU Kunjin wouldn't even need to remind him. Even so, he only wanted to know the direction of the next target. As for how to deal with it and how to use it, these are no longer something that others can interfere with. The 1000-year-old master is older than the eldest brother, and his magical powers are different. Since it has shown the initiative to take on things, their so-called layout is a bit like playing with a big knife in front of Guangdong. The general was silent for a while and could only nod. In this case, let's focus on cooperation. With their abilities, they can only cooperate. Even when Xingqian was there, they were just assisting in cooperation. ZHU Kunjin agreed. We will still report to Master Kaiensu where rescue is needed. As for whether he goes or not, it's up to him. The senior brother is very obedient, so we will keep it as it is. A group of people hurriedly discussed the various random change plans that Master Kaiensu had. Although this big guy's out of control, whether it is the advance of the barrier time or his ability to swallow spaceships with his mouth empty, in essence, everyone has benefited. So everyone's mood is on the rise. In P country, Ovi also saw the scene of Master Kaiensu swallowing the centipede. What is this again? He felt that he was getting more and more irritable. Last time it was Hydra, Toad, Robot, and now there is a big lion? Where did H country get these strange things from? Why don't we have anything? In the strategy room, everyone was as quiet as a chicken, with only the sound of keyboards and communications. Many people heard his complaints and responded silently in their hearts. H country has a history of thousands of years, so it's not strange to have strange things. RP country has only been established for a short time, and the land was robbed. What can we compare with them? Everyone knows the history of the rise of P country, so there is nothing to question. But no one dared to say this out loud, as it would offend OV. Seeing another centipede fall to the ground with a bang, the man in white flew out leisurely. The black lion-like giant beast suddenly appeared in a place, swallowed the centipede and a group of insect soldiers, and then suddenly disappeared. OV looked at the scene of his own hard battle, and couldn't help but yell. Where is Apollo? How long will it take to get it done? An old man in the family is like a treasure, and this treasure cannot be ordered around by anyone. Today I received a message from another treasure, saying that I have been abusing the main character recently. She has so many interesting books on her bookshelf, and doesn't want to read me who is asking for trouble. I feel sad. There are not many treasures who read my articles, and I cherish every one of them. The emotion of being blocked 2 days ago has not yet passed, and I was hit again today. I can't say something like goodbye. I won't say goodbye like other authors do, because this treasure has been very serious in helping me pick out typists from the beginning and read the article very seriously, reading every word carefully. Just like a good friend said, that I'm boring. I don't know whether to send her away with a smile, let her go to a happier place, or ask to stay. Subjectively, I don't mean to abuse the heroine. Her frustration and injury are structurally reasonable. I think the heroine must have some extreme experiences to grow quickly in a short period of time. For example, she can't bear to kill, so she must be given a forced environment. For example, her injury is because of the previous adjustment and insufficient combat power, which is inevitable. I took this opportunity to pull the Mecha that was originally in a hostile position to the heroine's camp. The heroine's injury is also a link that pushes the big brother to rescue, the black cat tension to play, and the layout of all aspects to change. Otherwise, there are always two mechas on top, which makes others seem useless. The important thing is that the heroine is growing through this series of things. Every pain will become an experience, making her strong and preparing for the later plot. After this period, the later will be a light and interesting content. Thank you everyone. Chapter 602 Antonio's Discovery. Antonio had been inside the centipede for a long time. He wanted to endure the nausea and destroy it from the inside out like in some movies. But the disgusting internal organs he imagined did not appear. If he hadn't known that there was a swinging centipede outside, he would have thought he had entered some high-tech place. This centipede is really a troop transport ship. Antonio didn't have time to think about it and kept slashing with the sword in his hand. If he couldn't cut it down, he would use energy bombardment. He also had concerns in his heart. It hadn't been too long since the previous self-explosion. What if this broken centipede also did this? No one can save him now. But he couldn't let this thing wreak havoc everywhere. He didn't have so many great ideas of self-sacrifice, but the arrow was on the string and had to be shot. As the strongest combat force in P country, or even the strongest in the world, he would have to face these things sooner or later. If he doesn't take advantage of its illness and kill it now and wait for it to recover, then all the previous attacks will be in vain. Antonio was terrified and drastic, like a person walking on a tightrope, playing a psychological stimulation. Foreigners are still bold. If Lin Fan were here, he would have been traumatized by the last explosion. He would probably hesitate to move forward, and how could he dare to drill into the belly of the insect? Antonio killed most of the insect soldiers in the centipede. The structure inside the centipede was also damaged in various ways. He would poke a hole almost every few steps to prevent it from exploding, so that he could have an escape route. But even so, the centipede did not tend to explode. Antonio slowly let go of his worries as he adapted to it, and was troubled by the strong vitality of these alien creatures. He could not figure out whether they were creatures or not. Could there be a trigger for self-explosion? There were 5 aircraft in total last time. Why was only Lin Fan's self-explosion? What did she trigger? With such a guess, he also took a test. But the centipede was beaten so hard that there was a big hole in the outer armor every few meters, and it was still swinging in the air. It is really a centipede that is dead but not stiff. Antonio wondered a few times whether this swinging was proof of life or just a mechanical activity of a biological structure. If it was a mechanical movement, then there should be a core of power, right? At this time, Ovi's voice came over. He couldn't hide his anger. Antonio was unhappy. He didn't stop again, and he was exhausted. Okay. He didn't expect you to give him a warm greeting, but he yelled at him now. He called him "dear little brother" before, but it hasn't been long, and he turned his face against him. If not. Antonio stopped walking, and really wanted to quit. The image of Lin Fan rushing towards him in the firelight jumped out of his mind. The girl works so hard, he couldn't be outdone, right? And things have come to this point. If he withdraws, it will be his own fault. He couldn't vent his anger in his heart, and he swung his sword fiercely. The broadsword carried the energy and cut through several layers of barriers next to it, leaving layers of gaps. In the space as bright as day, a touch of red light shone. Antonio paused. This light. After Ovi's rage, he found that Antonio didn't say anything, and he quickly regained his senses. It was irrational to offend his own baby for those perverts in H country. He apologized, flattered, and praised him repeatedly, but got no response from the other party. Looking at the first-person perspective, he stopped moving forward and pushed against the wall. "Hey my brother." Ovi thought he was in a bad mood and continued to say nice things. He saw the other party insert a sword into the previous gap, and the other hand inserted into the crack and pulled it apart fiercely. The structure that they couldn't break, no matter how hard they hit, was torn apart by Apollo's bare hands. Ovi's heart beat faster, and he regretted his irrationality again. He wasn't going to come out like this. Ovi looked at the third-person perspective picture next to him, and the broken centipede was still flying in the sky in high spirits. Good man. He wanted to continue to say nice things, but after the second wall was torn open, he also saw a dazzling red light. What is that? I really want to see it. Antonio didn't want to pay attention to him, but this guy was really noisy. He didn't want to tire his body and continue to bear inhuman blows on his ears. These people in high positions are not good people. After spitting in his heart, he said the guess about mechanical energy and continued to tear the wall with full concentration. Seeing the new discovery, OV didn't dare to nag him anymore and watched him work attentively. The further forward, the more red the light. If Antonio hadn't accidentally split the wall, he might not have found this place so quickly. The space behind the four walls was like a red fluorescent tube turned on, full of red, and Apollo began to turn red all over. He stared blankly at everything in front of him. Others who saw the scene in front of them through the camera were also stunned. It's incredible. OV sighed. Is this a gem? Such a huge gem. In front of him, a huge, bright red gem structure appeared in the dark environment. It emitted a dazzling red light, like a layer of top-level hallucinogen, which made people involuntarily immersed in it. But unfortunately, Antonio was not affected too much. After the initial shock, he walked forward quickly. Soon he saw the deep and light red inside the gem, and countless pipes hidden in the darkness. He stopped. What's wrong? Keep going forward. OV was still immersed in such a beautiful ruby. Such a big ruby is simply a miracle. Have you ever thought about it? Antonio felt a little complicated. Why is there a ruby in the centipede? OV was stunned. You mean, this gem is the energy core of the centipede? He nodded as he spoke. That makes sense. Metals or minerals can indeed provide energy. Such a huge ruby must have a huge energy source. It's not a ruby. Antonio sighed and continued to move forward. The sword in his hand was shrouded in holy light and turned into a bright white. If it's not a ruby, what is it? Obviously. As the camera moved forward, OV stopped talking. He also saw the dense branches in the large area of red, which was obviously not what a pure gem should have. What is that? Country H was also attracted by Apollo's discovery. Such a dazzling red color was hard not to attract attention. The entire control room was immersed in a layer of red light. It's a loop. The entomologist who had not spoken for a long time finally had the opportunity to speak. Loop. Everyone frowned. What is that? Antonio's voice came along with the red light. I suspect it's a heart. Come on. Chapter 597, which was blocked before, is now unblocked. Those who haven't read it, please subscribe for me. I basically didn't change it. You can also take a look at how wronged I was to be locked up in the dark room. Chapter 603 Energy Core. Heart? Everyone was shocked. Looking at it again, it was indeed labeled. But isn't the centipede an insect? Do insects have hearts? Someone asked. Why not? The entomologist said about his profession, and he became very confident. Insects also need blood circulation to participate in growth, development and metabolism, which are all transported by the heart. It's just that the heart of insects is different from that of mammals. He looked at the red gem heart on the screen, which looked more like their common heart. I don't know if this is the heart of this centipede, but ordinary insect hearts are not like this. The entomologist continued to explain. The heart of an insect is a tubular structure, and the swelled blood vessels are the ventricles. In short, it is different from the one in front of you. So is it or not? Everyone was confused. Antonio continued to move forward and easily saw the thick and thin blood vessels in the gem beating regularly, like breathing. He raised the lightsaber and increased the amount of holy light. In an instant, the dark background was illuminated by white light. Countless thick blood vessels extending from the ruby were attached to the walls and ceiling of the room. Even the people in front of the screen saw the breathing of those pipes. The room quickly pressed down again, leaving only red light. No matter if it is a heart or not, this mutant centipede is not an insect, right? Antonio did not have the patience to study these theoretical knowledge carefully. I feel that this thing is like the core that transmits energy to the centipede. Destroying this should make the centipede fall down, right? Yes. Whose heart can still glow? Everyone who has seen the internal structure of the centipede also thinks that this thing is more likely to be the core that transmits energy. Antonio wanted to chop it after he finished speaking, but was stopped by the general. Generally speaking, H country will not interfere with P country's actions, and there is no way to interfere. It's just that this time Antonio was wearing H country's video system, so he happened to be able to contact directly. What are you doing? Boss OV was unhappy. You have destroyed a few, and you still don't let us do it? The general ignored him and said directly to Antonio. Do you remember? Before Xingqian was injured and exploded, the first red light that came out was like this. Because each side had Lin Fan's first person perspective, they clearly saw the red light. But Antonio's angle was too far, and the light that burst out from behind was too strong, all in an instant. He recalled it, but he was not sure. I don't remember. What do you want to say? I didn't think of it before, but seeing this, and hearing you say that this is the power core, I think, is there a possibility? The general manager's foreign language was not fluent, with a strong accent, but there was no problem in communication. Suppose there was such a core component on the previous aircraft, then could the last self-explosion be caused by Xingqian accidentally poking this thing? OV didn't say a word, thinking about this possibility seriously. If the ruby itself is the core of energy transmission, that is, it is an energy body, it is entirely possible that it will cause a violent energy reaction after being poked, that is, an explosion. You mean, the last accident was an accident, not gross conspiracy? Antonio was stunned. I thought it was a bit strange that only one aircraft exploded before, but now it makes sense if it is an accident. But, he shook his head, it's still not right. The star was inserted into the aircraft long ago to discharge electricity. If it really explodes when this thing is destroyed, then it doesn't make sense that the entire aircraft was destroyed by electricity and started to fall. The general manager looked at the screen and the key points he summarized and continued. We have derived a hypothesis from this. You can listen to it. Suppose that the star gun was indeed inserted into this core by coincidence, but at the moment, when it did not explode, the huge current caused the internal circuits and working systems of the aircraft to be scrapped. The energy of the core could not explode, or was directly consumed under such a strong voltage. Is there a possibility? Antonio did not reply, but Ovi affirmed. Although this kind of coincidence is really hard to say, it is possible. We have all seen the thunder power of the star. It is very strong. Then, under this assumption, is it possible that the excessive current will happen? The general manager continued. You mean, Ovi's eyes turned and understood. This core energy was originally destroyed or consumed by the star, and could not be activated, but the continuous current became a kind of energy, and activated it again. Antonio understood. Electricity is a high-level energy source. It can not only destroy things, but also make many things run. So Lin Fan was just unlucky? Did he choose an inappropriate place? We got a relatively intact aircraft, the general continued. After investigation, there is indeed such a cabin under the place where Xingqian stabbed before. It also has the structures we see in front of us. It's just that all the systems inside are scrapped, and there is no such light effect, so I didn't think of this place at first. The Minister of Armaments of Country H has been busy since he got the things the day before. They also had doubts about the self-explosion of the aircraft, so they focused on the place where Lin Fan stabbed. It's just that the gem that lost its red light is just a grey broken stone, and the breathing pipes are all cold ordinary pipes, so they really didn't think of this place at first. It wasn't until Antonio discovered this cabin that the Minister of Armaments made a connection. Antonio's mouth twitched. If it was really Lin Fan who stabbed it himself, it would be really unlucky. Then what do you think we should do? He didn't want to delay anymore and asked directly. Is it possible not to touch the gem part? The general expressed his thoughts. Don't touch the core, just disconnect its circuit. The circuit refers to the pipes above. Since it is breathing and twitching, energy transmission does exist. Cutting off the pipeline should achieve the same purpose, even if the core is intact. If possible, they can also get a complete energy core for future use. Ovi also thought it was appropriate, not to mention that this was on his territory. By then, the energy core that can support the operation of such a centipede will be in their hands. Antonio thought about it and felt that it was feasible. But for safety, he still drilled a hole nearby and arranged an escape route early. After everything was ready, under the watchful eyes of everyone, Antonio held his breath and used the sword in his hand to cut open a bunch of pipes above the gem core. Just in case, he even used holy light to make a shield for the core below. At the moment, when the light cut through the pipe, he also rushed out of the escape passage and ran as far as he could. The worried strong light did not appear. Ovi's voice came first. Success. My dear little brother, we succeeded. Yes, it was a coincidence. Look, energy is here too, right? Chapter 604, Clumsy. Antonio went back and took another look. The ruby whose circuit was cut off was like a coal stove with a lid. The surface was no longer transparent, but like it was covered with frosted glass. The red light was completely covered, no longer as brilliant as before, really like an unpolished rough stone. Yes, yes, yes. The person in charge of the armaments of Country H said repeatedly, this should be in good condition, not bad, not bad. He also knew that the things in Country P's hands would most likely not be shared with them, just like the materials in their hands were also hidden tightly. So he looked at ZHU Kunjin eagerly, hoping that he would find a way. If ZHU Kunjin had any way, he would have to whisper to the eldest brother. Fortunately, the eldest brother also disliked the difficulty of dealing with centipedes. After knowing that there was a more convenient way, he used it directly, and the effect was immediate. Although the remains were not in the territory of Country H, they belonged to the Eastern Hemisphere. Now that Country H is powerful, other small countries are looking forward to their rescue. It is impossible for them to stop them from getting the spoils. Besides, they have no way to dismantle such a big thing, let alone hide it. ZHU Kunjin also reported to the 1,000-year-old master. However, there was no response from the other side, and they continued to swallow mouthful after mouthful. The Minister of Armaments felt a little distressed at first, but then he thought that he was too greedy. How could everything go as he wished? The current materials are enough for them to use for a long time. Although the weakness of the big centipede was found, it is not easy to operate it. In fact, only 2 people and 1 beast can achieve the attack effect. Fortunately, there are not many centipedes on Langsing. After a cleanup, at the cost of heavy casualties in some places, they were finally wiped out. But no one dared to take it lightly, because a new round of attacks is coming. This time, Gross sent out various large and small aircraft with unknown purposes. Just as everyone figured out the weakness of the centipede, they have to face a lot of new opponents. It is impossible to say that there is no headache, but no matter what, we must persist and hold on. These spacecraft are of various types, some with insects, and some that attack directly like fighter jets. There are also those that are silent and hit the ground without moving. The simulated map of the radio telescope was so dense that it made people feel desperate. Is this the last attack? Someone asked in a trembling voice, and it was unclear whether he was asking someone or trying to convince himself. In the territory of H country, countless defense shields were erected, which blocked foreign attacks to a large extent. The places not protected by the shields were mostly remote mountains and forests with sparse populations. Even if something fell there and there was no time to protect it, at least it would not cause a large number of casualties. Everyone wanted to comfort themselves with such an excuse, but soon found that the foreign object signs on the simulated signal receiving map were decreasing in the places without sky monitoring. Is that the 1,000-year-old master? Looking at the screen, the white-clothed boss was still tossing back and forth in various urban areas, but the black behemoth had not been seen for a long time, and someone speculated it should be. ZHU Kunjin had long discovered the dynamics of the mountain forests and grasslands, and knew that it should be his ancestor who was cleaning there. Why does he always go to sparsely populated places? Someone was anxious. Come to the city. There are many people in the city. ZHU Kunjin glanced at him coldly and replied. Why should we go to places with many people? Should we ignore places with few people? That's not what I meant, the other party retorted. It's just that there are many people. ZHU Kunjin interrupted before he finished. Don't bring out the people-oriented set. The other party wanted to refute him, but he heard him say again. You may have forgotten that Master Kaiensu is not a human being. In his eyes, humans are no different from other creatures, and may even be lower. The other party was stunned, and finally reacted, after connecting the several areas where Master Kaiensu appeared. So Master Kaiensu is not filling the gap in defense, but deliberately saving wild animals? Unexpected, but reasonable. Yes, ZHU Kunjin replied. He always goes to mountainous areas and forest areas, where wild animals are densely distributed, and he probably also takes those in remote towns along the way. Yes, there are more creatures on Langsing than humans. The entomologist also nodded. If other animals are extinct in this attack, it will not be good to leave only humans. Although everyone understands this truth, not many can accept it. Someone said angrily, at this time, who cares about other things? People are definitely more important. Then go and tell it to listen to you. ZHU Kunjin said coldly. The man wilted immediately. He didn't even give ZHU Kunjin face. What can he say? The matter was left unresolved. Sure enough, in the face of strength, any complaints are meaningless. Each country has the shield protection of the special office, various superpowers, energy gun counterattacks, and two big guys patrolling the eastern hemisphere continent. The overall battle situation is relatively stable. Other countries also took advantage of each country. Although there is no protective shield, the big guys will help them solve many problems when they patrol. It's a bit miserable, but there is still hope. On the other side of Lansing, Ovi has long been annoyed by these overwhelming things. Without a shield and a big guy, relying on Lansing's own firepower, it can only cause damage to some alien visitors, and most of them are useless. It's not that his energy gun is useless, but the opponent is large in size and number. With a small energy gun, it can only resist individual bugs, and it is useless against large aircraft. Now, the national strength of P country has been put up, but the defeat is obvious. If it continues like this, it will be a matter of time before they lose everything. He looked at each country. Everything seemed to be in order, which formed a sharp contrast with the chaos on his side. He gritted his teeth and bowed to the other side. I say, we are all good brothers, aren't we? Ovi piled up his wrinkles and was very polite to the general. You have so many means. Can't you support us? The general also saw that the Western Hemisphere was in chaos, but their abilities were limited, and there was an uncontrollable 1,000-years-old lord. How could they support them? But not supporting them seemed to be impossible. Among the various newly landed aircraft, there seemed to be stationed spacecraft. If they let it go, the destruction of P country would make them feel good. But at this moment, the Western Hemisphere was occupied, and Grow was equivalent to setting up camp behind them. That was also a big trouble for them. How can I allow others to snore beside my bed? The general did not refuse outright, but quickly discussed with others whether there was any way to support the Western Hemisphere. After all, there was only Apollo who could fight there, and he had been busy all day. I don't know how long his energy can last. The final result of the discussion. The threats in the Eastern Hemisphere have been greatly reduced because of the presence of the two big guys. Compared with the densely packed Western Hemisphere, the intruders in the Eastern Hemisphere can almost be counted one by one. Because of the deterrence of the big guys, the overall situation in the Eastern Hemisphere is still okay. If you let the eldest brother take some time to support the back and ask Master Kaiensu to look after other places, it should be completely possible. After all, the intrusions in the mountains and wilds are not as many as in the city, and Master Kaiensu has cleared a large area at this time. After the discussion on the H side, ZHU Kunjin was asked to notify the big brother. The eldest brother didn't say anything. It didn't matter to him where to go. He just sighed again, that it was not easy for Lin Fan to work. Master Kaiensu didn't say anything either, and left Africa. Everyone thought it was going to Europe to fill in for the big brother, but soon, its huge figure was seen on the camera in North America. What's going on? Exclamation mark. H side was anxious. Why did the two big brothers run away? What should they do? Kaiensu, I heard you want to order me around. Haha. Chapter 605. Stars appear. In fact, after the two bosses left, the situation in H country was not greatly affected. For other countries, well, they are still struggling to resist, and the impact does not seem to be that great. It's just that without the boss's heart, I feel uneasy. The chief quickly mobilized the ground troops, and in the difficult resistance, he once again felt the passivity of lagging behind. In the air, and on the sea, all kinds of artillery fired at the same time, and the excitement alone was scary enough. ZHU Kunjin found something wrong and quickly asked the people from the Special Affairs Office to take over. At this time, there was no need to reserve strength. If you can't get through this wave, why reserve strength for the ghosts? All the combat readiness personnel that could be mobilized in the Special Affairs Office dispersed. Wu Yusen wanted to go out, but was stopped by ZHU Kunjin. It doesn't matter whether you go out or not. Lin Fan hasn't woken up yet, and someone has to take care of her. ZHU Kunjin was really distressed when Lin Fan was injured. But he was also very busy. He didn't even have time to go and see her in person. He sat in the information room and received various deployment information. Wang Fengfeng described Lin Fan's situation to him when he came back. ZHU Kunjin thought about it and couldn't bear to let the child lie alone. When he woke up, there was no one familiar with him. Besides, what if Wu Yusen guessed what ZHU Kunjin meant, looked at him deeply, and went to the medical department to check on him without looking back? Lin Fan was still lying motionless in the sterile box. Wu Yusen asked the nurse next to him and found that he had not woken up. He sighed at the door and walked in. The fight outside was in full swing, and Lin Fan was also fighting with himself. As far as he knew, repair cells could repair their own defects, but they could not repair pain. He gently lifted the sheet covering the box. The bloody skin on his back had healed. The skin was pink like a newborn baby, and the skin on the back of his arms was white, pink, and mottled. Further down, there were skin injuries below the waist. When Wu Yusen saw the pink and white skin, he quickly pulled the sheet back to his shoulders. Now, the internal organs have healed, and the muscles and skin have also healed. Lin Fan, when will you wake up? Wu Yusen sat next to the sterile box, looking at Lin Fan's bald head, but his thoughts had already flown outside. The countdown in the control room had long turned to 4. Many people saw it, but they didn't feel much relieved. Under such an overwhelming offensive, everyone felt exhausted, especially when the two big guys ran to the back of Langsing to help. At this time, the area hit hardest suddenly flashed with white light, and the figure of Xingqian appeared on the screen. Xingqian is coming. Everyone cheered. Mecha people can easily break the defense of these things. Just look at Apollo. He has been fighting for a day, and just now he was exhausted and retreated to rest. But even if he was exhausted, his destructive ability to those aircraft has not weakened much. Antonio was lying on a cowhide recliner drinking. When he saw Xingqian on the screen, his hands trembled, and he poured it all over his face. Is she okay? He was happy and worried. Lin Fan was so seriously injured. How long will it take for him to continue to fight the enemy? No need to rest. TSK, TSK, TSK. OV deliberately provoked, then H country said how good it was to her. Look, is it that good? Antonio glanced at him, said nothing, poured another glass of wine, and lay in the chair to drink slowly. His eyes were always fixed on the white shadow on the screen. With the enthusiastic support of the two big guys in the Western Hemisphere, the situation was finally back under control. The Eastern Hemisphere was basically in a state of struggling to hold on, but it could still hold on. At this time, any help would be a good thing for them. After Xingqian appeared, he quickly eliminated the threat. That speed was as if he was not injured at all, which puzzled Antonio. Ovi was very happy. The stronger Xingqian was, the more satisfied he was. In H country, the people who were still excited just now quickly reacted. Isn't this Xingqian? If it was Xingqian, it should be directly dispatched by our general control. The dispatch rights of Xingqian and the Mecha team were taken over by the general control, and ZHU Kunjin did not say the news of Xingqian's recovery. All signs point to one fact. It must be the star card. Gao Fei said as he sat in the lounge, staring at the screen. Didn't it appear when Gao he was there before? Li Chunhua's mouth, which had just opened, slowly pulled back again. It's not Lin Fan. He had been worried, since he knew that Lin Fan was seriously injured, and thought that, if the star card appeared, Lin Fan would definitely be fine. Now that he thinks about it, he is naive. How long has it been? The last time Lin Fan was stabbed by the cuckold, it took him almost half a month to get out of bed. After their strong request, they finally showed them the photos of Lin Fan's injury this time. Not to mention him, Li Chunhua, they were so stubborn that their eyes were red. Why does this girl always suffer such a big crime? Li Chunhua sighed in his heart, thinking that the person who had talked and laughed with them, and had dinner with them a few days ago, now lying there, life or death. Well, death should not die, but, anyway, it is right to suffer. It should be the star card. The card holder has passed. GU said after observing calmly. It's different from Lin Fan's habits. What's different? Li Chunhua opened his eyes wide, but couldn't see anything wrong. Where's Captain Song? asked the second generation armor driver. He was here just now, another person replied. Maybe he was reminded of someone and ran out to smoke. Since they retired from the Mecha yesterday, when the energy ran out, they rested and replenished their physical strength as soon as possible, and the Mecha was also sent to replace the energy module. Now they just got up and gathered in the lounge waiting for the order to go out. Unexpectedly, I saw a familiar face on the screen. He smokes a lot these 2 days. Lee Chun-hua scratched his chin. I didn't see him smoking a few cigarettes a year before, but he has smoked several years of cigarettes recently. Is it because of too much pressure? GU and others looked at Lee Chun-hua's ignorant look and didn't want to talk to him. This guy's really lucky. With such poor observation skills, he can become a top mecha driver. But if you say that his observation skills are poor, his business ability to drive a mecha is very sharp. But he is stupid when it comes to human relations. Song Ren has something against Lin Fan. Not only Gao Fei, but also the second generation A pilots who came later have sensed it. This idiot is really stupid. But this is Captain Song's privacy. He didn't say it himself, and they didn't intend to wake Lee Chun-hua up. They all pretended to be confused. Everyone sighed. How could such an innocent and straightforward guy be so far ahead in getting married and having children? The door was pushed open, and Song Ren, who was sent to smoke, appeared behind the door and notified with a serious face. Assemble, go. The loose mood immediately dissipated without a trace, and several people quickly got up and ran out. After the chaotic noise, in the empty lounge, only the white figure on the screen was still fighting bravely. Zao he finished charging, and the star card came on the court. Lee Chun-hua has always been a simpleton and straight man. Chapter 606 Wake Up. How is it now? Lin Fan knelt straight on the bed to eat in order to avoid touching her butt. She was wearing a loose hospital gown, and Wu Yusen stood in front of her holding a bowl. The bedside table and coffee table next to her were filled with all kinds of delicious food personally delivered by the canteen chef. Why are you worrying about that? Wu Yusen saw that Lin Fan was in good spirits and had a good appetite, and his originally depressed mood became much happier. Just take good care of your body. Hey. Lin Fan rolled her eyes at him and did not continue to argue. She finished a bowl with a slurp and wiped her mouth. Wu Yusen turned around and brought a new bowl. It's not that Lin Fan is squeamish and wants him to serve her. It's just that her injuries are all on her back. Although the appearance has healed, the pain is still there. It's better not to touch it if you can. Lin Fan woke up at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. After the initial period of ignorance, she has been in pain. Wu Yusen called Wenji to get painkillers. Wenji said that painkillers will paralyze the nerves. But for wounds like Lin Fan, small doses of painkillers are not very useful, and they have to be used for a long time, which is not good for her recovery. From the pain she was in, it was clear that the wound was only healed on the surface, and the inside was still damaged. Wu Yusen couldn't bear to see Lin Fan groaning, so he thought of giving her the medicine regardless of the consequences. At least it would be good to relieve her pain for a minute. She was so uncomfortable that she might as well be unconscious. But Lin Fan said no. Isn't it just painful? It's not like she hasn't been in pain before. Wenji said that pain may also be related to energy deficiency. If the energy is replenished in place, the cells will be nourished by the energy, and the pain may subside earlier. He was about to increase the amount of nutrient solution for Lin Fan, but was stopped by Lin Fan, who hummed and had wanted to eat. Isn't it just to replenish energy? Eating is fine. She was awake, but she had to endure the pain and lie still. Is this what a human being would do? So it became like this. ZHU Kunjin laughed out loud when he heard the news that Lin Fan had woken up and told Wu Yusen to make sure she took good care of herself and not worry about the mess outside. She could still hold on for now. After the general control was happy, no one suggested that Xingchen come up to deal with the emergency. The situation was already like this. Xingchen could certainly solve the crisis, but they were still human beings. She was injured and had just woken up and was still in pain. Who could speak up? And ZHU Kunjin meant that if anyone didn't want this face, he would come back to collect it for them. The general director also warned not to leak the news to avoid pressure from other forces and add trouble. In short, Lin Fan's awakening, except for making everyone relaxed for a while, actually had no effect on the battle situation. The chefs in the cafeteria knew that Minister Lin was injured a long time ago. They were not at the scene, but they always had their own sources of information. They felt distressed. Knowing that she woke up, she wanted to eat her own cooking skills as soon as possible, so they used all their skills to stir fry on the spot. All kinds of hot delicacies were delivered to the ward like an assembly line. This patient does not have any general dietary restrictions. The higher the calories, the better. Watching Minister Lin inhaling the delicious food, the chefs all smiled for the first time in a few days. Seeing Wu Yusen avoiding the question, Lin Fan had some guesses in her mind. But she also knew that Wu Yusen was tight-lipped, and if he didn't intend to say anything, no one could get anything out of him. After all, without strength, what could she do if she asked? Talk less and eat more is the hard truth. The chefs in the cafeteria were busy, and Minister Lin had never eaten so much at one time. Even Wu Yusen felt something was wrong, but seeing that Lin Fan was eating and eating, he didn't have to continue to be a human dining table. He thought it was better to eat more and recover faster. Anyway, she couldn't have indigestion, so let her eat. Just like that, the sun set again. Zhu Kunjin sniffed. Why did he feel like he smelled the aroma of food? He turned around suddenly, and sure enough, he saw Lin Fan, who had come to the information room at some point, holding a bag of fried chicken in his hand, eating as he walked. Why are you here? Zhu Kunjin glanced at Wu Yusen, and quickly stood up, to let Lin Fan sit. No. Lin Fan waved his greasy hands, and smiled as he stood in front of Wu Yusen. Don't blame him, he can't beat me. Wu Yusen looked at the girl standing in front of him, with a scarred head, which was really ugly. Lin Fan had been focusing on eating, since she woke up, and she didn't think about this at all, and they couldn't remind her. This head, not to mention that the girl would cry, he would reject it from the bottom of his heart, and didn't want to talk. Zhu Kunjin naturally saw the dog-bitten head, and after a quick exchange of glances with Wu Yusen, he pretended not to see it, and sat back with a smile. Then I'll listen to you. Zio Wu, move a chair over. I'll do it. Wang Fengfeng was ready long ago, and he pushed his wheelchair behind Lin Fan diligently. Sit on mine. This chair cost a lot of money, and it feels great. Lin Fan smiled at him, didn't refuse, and sat down gently. Yeah, it's soft and very comfortable, isn't it? Wang Fengfeng raised his chin proudly at her, dragged an empty chair from the side, sat back in his seat, and went back to work. Wu Yusen also dragged 2 chairs over, and put them together, and put out the large and small bags in his hands one by one. The information room was suddenly filled with the aroma of various foods, and the technicians who were originally concentrating on their work could not help but be pulled back to the world by the aroma. Many people were seen by Lin Fan when they looked back, and she smiled and invited them to come and eat together. The people in the information room all knew Lin Fan's situation, and they all rejected her kindness, and went back to typing on the keyboard. Is it not good for me to do this? Lin Fan leaned close to Wu Yusen's ear, and asked in a low voice. She was so anxious to know the current situation that she forgot that the information room was such a serious place. It's okay. Zhu Kunjin replied with a smile. Come on, I'm hungry too. Give me some. Lin Fan didn't know whether he was serious or just trying to save her, so he handed over the fried chicken in his hand, feeling grateful. Zhu Kunjin took a bite without hesitation, chewed it and swallowed it, and asked, why are you here? Didn't I just wake up and tell you to have a good rest? Director, I've been eating all afternoon, and I'm almost healed. She rolled up her arms and showed the director her thin biceps. Feeling that the effect was not good, she took it back embarrassedly. Anyway, I can run and jump now. I'm fine. The director smiled. The girl meant not to hide it from her. Looking at her appearance, he didn't believe that she was fully recovered. But now she can move freely. It's true. Forget it. Since the child is here, she is also worried about it. If she drives people back, she will be uneasy. Okay, then you can take a look here, so that you don't think we are hiding it from you. Zhu Kunjin smiled and finished the fried chicken in his hand, and quickly turned around to drink half a cup of tea. My god, why is this thing so sweet? Lin Fan finally achieved his goal, raised an eyebrow at Wu Yusen happily, and continued to stuff food into his mouth. Come on, tell me what's going on. After showing off, Lin Fan asked for help in a low voice. Wu Yusen sighed helplessly, and when the director didn't stop him, he whispered in her ear. The protagonist woke up. It's time to wake up. If he doesn't wake up, the fight is over. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 607, Tiredness. Listening to Wu Yusen's explanation, Lin Fan's brows furrowed more and more. On the big screen, the simulated map of the radio telescope was still red. Is this okay? Her worries grew heavier, but she didn't stop eating. She was very clear about her body's condition. The pain was still following her like a shadow. It was not a big problem for daily activities, so she could just bear it. But she wanted to fight. Not yet. The last time Apollo carried her back was a pleasant surprise, but she couldn't be so careless this time. She had to accumulate strength. Wu Yusen looked at Lin Fan's expression and had some guesses in his mind. He wanted to stop her, but he opened his mouth and the words didn't come out. He looked at the various resistance scenes on the screen, the devastation of the people, and he wanted to rush up himself. What position could he have to say to Lin Fan? Fieldwork meant that you had to be at the forefront at any time. The food they brought was quickly eaten up, and Wu Yusen took the initiative to ask the technicians in the information room if they wanted to eat, and he would go to buy the goods. ZHU Kunjin didn't say anything and acquiesced. He knew what Lin Fan was planning. Anyway, she was destined to stay here and eat and watch. Look at how fragrant it is in here. You can't let others smell it, watch it, and work on an empty stomach, right? One of ZHU Kunjin's strengths is to handle special matters in a special way and be flexible. Seeing that ZHU Kunjin did not object, everyone happily announced the names of the dishes. They didn't have such a big obsession with food, but for some reason, the food today was particularly fragrant and kept going into their noses, which aroused their appetite. I want to go and eat something, but I don't have to finish the work in my hands, which seems unprofessional. Now there is a delivery service, which is simply great. Because there are so many equipments, eating is prohibited in the information room for fear of accidentally damaging the equipment. Now I have such a special experience, which is the only one in my life. The control room didn't know that Lin Fan had been eating and drinking beside ZHU Kunjin for a long time, and they were all paying attention to the real-time battle situation. Is this poking a hornet's nest? Someone muttered indignantly. The densely packed aircraft seemed endless. Even after such a long period of destruction, there are still so many. Looking at Grow in the sky, he didn't put anything down. So, it should be the last wave, right? Everyone silently guessed in their hearts, trying to hope that it was true. In the current situation, except for the two big guys running around, it was relatively easy. Apollo, one of the strongest fighters, also showed obvious difficulty. Although he is a Mecha, he is also a person inside. After fighting for a long time, he can only rest for a short time. Whether physically or mentally, he is already very tired. Especially when the two big guys ran back to the eastern hemisphere. The entire Americas had almost no high-end resistance, allowing the aliens to wreak havoc. He is not such a kind person, but he can't just watch the tragedy happen. Those alien scums didn't know where they knew that there were people hiding underground, and destroyed the door of the bunker. As if on purpose, let the people underground flee out, and then kill them one by one. Antonio watched the blood flow in the ruins, and when the energy was almost accumulated, he gritted his teeth and pushed up again. It's just that this time there are too many types of aircraft, with different characteristics, and almost different attack capabilities and methods. Antonio fought this and that, and he really felt a kind of endless fatigue. It's too difficult to rely on a few people to reverse the situation for the survival of a planet. No matter how powerful they are just a drop in the ocean in the face of such a huge attack. Antonio laughed at himself and thought of Lin Fan again. After the previous star appeared, he soon knew that it was not Lin Fan. Ovi also remembered another star that appeared in Gao. After knowing that it was another mysterious method of H country, he smashed a cup in jealousy. Antonio's heart, which was originally surprised, slowly fell again. I don't know how she is now. After killing a few insect soldiers, he fired a shot at the aircraft that was sending troops not far away, and then rushed in to find the core. Ovi painted a rosy picture for him, saying how useful these things will be in the future, and they can do this and that. He didn't listen to it. It might not be possible now, let alone in the future. He snorted coldly, rushing left and right to kill, still trying to preserve the internal structure of the aircraft and the integrity of the insect corpses, quickly looking for the power core of the ship, and cutting them off as quickly as possible. After landing, many aircrafts crawled on the ground and did not move, and then the hatch opened, and a large number of insect soldiers scattered out. They not only carried weapons, but also something similar to instruments, and began to lay out things like decks, as if they were building a base. The two major forces that discovered the situation hurriedly called people to intercept, and naturally there was a lot of chaos. After the deployment, the people in the control room saw spiders running around again, and many insect soldiers dug deep underground, and they were worried about the world tree again. Will they swallow their energy again? Even though they had reported the dying characteristics of spiders to the world, asking ordinary combat forces to avoid them, and not to have direct contact. But in the situation, where combat forces were already tense and their lives were threatened, they could not take so much into consideration. A lot of spider silk burst out, but for some reason, the ugly woman did not say a word. Now these dead things are digging down again. Simazeo's intentions are known to everyone. It's only a few days before the barrier is opened, and it's already very difficult. If there is any recurrence, the queen didn't say it, it should be fine. ZHU Kunjin has been in contact with Jin Sichin. The ugly woman has been sitting cross-legged in front of the tree with a calm expression. At this juncture, Jin Sichin didn't dare to go in and disturb her, for fear of distracting her. But there is one thing, if the world tree is damaged, the ugly woman can't turn a blind eye. So basically it can be inferred that there is no big problem. The people who got the news are both relieved and worried. Look at the number on the screen. In less than 2 hours, it will turn into 3, and everyone feels that victory is coming soon. Compared with H country, which knows the world tree barrier, P country and other forces are getting more and more desperate. Some people even propose to surrender or send people to negotiate. Although everyone disagrees, they can understand it. It is originally a small country with weak strength. Even if there are other people to help, half of them were killed and injured in these rounds, which is also a heavy loss. Even if Gro was forced to retreat, well, he left for some reason. Their Z power is almost in a state of collapse. In addition, the ground has been plowed, so there is nothing. By then, apart from having a name, they may not even have a place to speak. They are really scared and want to admit defeat. But this battle is completely different from the past. The two sides can sit down and talk and make a good deal. It's good for you, me, and everyone. The opponents of this battle are aliens. Judging from the current memes, they don't care about the lives of the Langsing people at all. If they want to wave the white flag, others may not understand. Who are they going to admit defeat to? The small country seemed to understand this truth and closed its mouth helplessly. This is a life and death battle for defense. There is no winning or losing, only life and death. It was supposed to end at the end of the month, but there is still a little bit left. It's almost over. Chapter 608. It's not easy. Lezing King and Master Kaiensu were not as relaxed as they thought. For Lezing King, breaking was what he was best at. One sword broke all laws. It would be much easier for him to destroy a planet than it is now. But he was assigned a rescue mission, so he had to break what should be broken, and not break what should not be broken. Especially when the invaders and the original things of Langsing were mixed together, the troubles were multiplied. Forget it, just treat it as a distraction practice. It just happened that he hadn't practiced using such a subtle distraction to control the sword for a long time. Besides, he had never seen these things before, and they were quite novel. Lezing King never underestimated the enemy and regarded every battle as a training ground to improve his abilities. Master Kaiensu, the sky-swallowing kitten, had the same concerns. It could swallow Langsing directly with its big mouth, but what would that do? Let's not talk about the creatures on Langsing. If Langsing disappeared, where would it go? As a big demon that still needs to breathe, Kyansu said, don't be so barbaric when doing things. In addition, a lot of energy was transferred to the world tree, and ZHU Kunjin specifically reminded it not to destroy the structure of those things. After thinking about it, it was only the most convenient and quickest to devour instincts. It could fill some of its deficits, and when it turned around and vomited, each one was original and undamaged. Who saw it wouldn't give a thumbs up and say that Master Kyansu is awesome. But Master Kyansu was a little unhappy after coming and going for a long time. There were so many fragmented things, one here and to there, making the great demon look very uncool. But now that things have come to this, it can't give up halfway. Other spells are either too rough and easy to affect the surrounding areas. The delicate ones consume more energy. The barrier of the world tree has not been established yet, and the ugly woman is obviously not done yet. If we retreat now, won't all the work in the early stage be in vain? It has contributed a lot of energy. Fortunately, it is just a little annoyed, and time is not a problem for it. The little black cat meowed and opened its mouth wide at the aircraft in the air. After a night's rest, Song Ren and Lee Chun-ho entered the Mecha again. The 14-man Mecha team was divided into groups of 2 or 3 and dispersed to various places for emergency response. Although there were many sunshine hours during their battles, the energy usage time became much longer. The battery module replacement time was also shortened. But the long-term driving made the driver's body feel irresistible fatigue. So basically, as soon as they got off the machine, they had to massage and relax, replenish energy, and rest. To be honest, this was the first time they had worked so continuously and intensively since their training. Even Song Ren felt the body's protest. But can they retreat at this time? No. Behind them are more unarmed and unable to resist. They have the ability and responsibility to stand in front of them. Lee Chun-ho hissed and breathed out, and he also felt severe joint strain. He usually talks the most, but he has never revealed a trace of retreat. When this wave of work is over, I will have a whole body of big swords. His silly voice came from the communication headset. Boss, do you want to join us? Okay. Song Ren was in a joking mood for a rare time. You pay? Lee Chun-ho controlled Jin Gang to get off the armored vehicle and replied without hesitation. Of course it's you who pays. I have to support my wife and children with my salary. You don't have a partner and you have too much money to spend. I'll help you. Song Ren snorted coldly. Thank you so much. Fu Guang had completed the self-check, and he controlled the Mecha to rush towards the target. Why are we still polite? Before he finished speaking, Jin Gang rushed out. The two worked hard to fight monsters. They would go up and deal with the aircraft that could be destroyed. If they couldn't, they would put it aside and wait for the boss to come to support them. Most of the time, they were responsible for the scattered insect soldiers. They regarded these powerful enemies as grindstones to temper themselves. Although they were extremely tired, their progress was visible to the naked eye. Under this extreme pressure, even the second-generation armor pilots can take charge of their own affairs in just a few days. Song Ren felt that, if safety was guaranteed, such opportunities would come more often, which might be better for their strength growth. The dispatch of the Mecha team was based on the cities without barrier protection and the distribution of enemy forces. Cities with barriers were not as solid as a rock. When they were unlucky and encountered high attack aircraft, the barriers would also shake and look shaky. However, the people of the Special Affairs Office were guarding them, and they were also flexible and maneuverable, so the problem was not big. Cities that were not taken care of by the barriers were certainly not abandoned. After the chief received the defense map from ZHU Kunjin, he mobilized the military to places that could not be guarded and tried to protect the lives and property of the people as much as possible from harm. The mountains, forests and wildlands were basically contracted by Master Kyansu, so the casualties in each country were basically within the controllable range. As for the other G families, they really couldn't help with the internal defense part and could only ask the two big guys to rescue them from time to time, which was considered their best efforts. As mentioned before, the attack of the Mecha team does not have much effect on many aircraft. In many cases, it is still the ground firepower that is blocking. Although it cannot be destroyed, it can largely prevent the opponent's next move. How long has it been since the people of Country H heard such powerful artillery fire? The deafening and continuous sound, as well as the occasional shaking, frightened the people in the underground shelter. On TV, they were still looping the scenes of their successful restraint of Gro's attack and their staged victory. It can be said that all of them were good news. At the beginning, people cheered and did not take it seriously, until the artillery fire became more and more continuous. Even the most optimistic people noticed that something was wrong. In the underground bunker, the atmosphere gradually became tense. There were even unconfident voices. Did they just say good things and actually lie to us? Are we going to lose? I don't know who said this, but it spread quickly. Some people were worried and afraid, and they didn't say a word, shrinking in their assigned positions and cooperating obediently. Some people began to make noise and make trouble. The internet was quickly infected by this restlessness, and very discordant voices appeared. Fortunately, most people are still rational. They made a well-reasoned analysis, based on the status of the staff and the supply of resources. But there were many people who had problems. In order to calm the people's restless emotions, the old man also made a special speech and played some real-time pictures. In the past, the pictures were selected for release for fear of causing panic. But now that different voices have come out, some not so good pictures can also be shown to the public. Collapsed buildings, sacrificed people, various means of tenacious resistance. Of course, there are also comparisons between various countries. Or maybe they were too full, so they had the leisure to start rebelling. After the live broadcast on the ground, the bad voices were indeed suppressed. Most people think that compared with other countries, each country has done well enough. Speak out actively. After all, a war has broken out. It's impossible to remain quiet. Yeah, you kids haven't experienced the past. The Z war is such a terrible thing. Why are you making trouble when you have someone to protect you? Trust the G family. Support the G family. If you can do it, then do it. There's no point hiding behind others. Just as the people's hearts were calmed down, the signal of the H country on the simulated map suddenly became blurred, and a large area of the signal was lost. What's going on? The main control urgently called the space agency. Report to the main control. Several of our radio telescopes have been damaged. In the case of losing satellites, radio telescopes are their rise. Now that they are damaged, it's really bad. Everyone's face was gloomy, and their hearts sank a little bit. Starting this month, I will update alone again. Wait for me to slow down, save some manuscripts, and then start double updates. Mua. Chapter 609 Pretend. Although the storm has subsided, the after effects are still there. Of course, the people hiding underground can no longer be as carefree as before. After facing the tragedy, most people's hearts fluctuate with the death situation outside. Some feel sad for the sacrificed personnel. Some pray for the resistance personnel on the ground. In short, it finally feels like the Z time. Father and Mother Lin didn't see any new news about Gaohi, but the situation outside is so chaotic, they can't help but worry about their daughter. After calling several times, no one answered. Could something have happened? Mother Lin started to scare herself again. Father Lin pulled her. Hurry up and spit on the ground. Step on it, step on it. Mother Lin quickly cooperated, stepped on it, and rubbed it repeatedly until only a dark damp mark was left on the ground, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. She clasped her hands together and prayed devoutly to the air. Buddha bless me, what I just said is not effective. No one knew which specific Buddha was in charge of this matter. But after doing this, it seemed to really work, and the old couple finally felt relieved. Can you think before you speak next time? Lin's father couldn't help but reveal the worries hidden deep in his heart. He had been a soldier when he was young, and he had also lived in a devastated environment. After watching the TV broadcast, he knew the situation better than others. But unlike before, he always liked to talk to people and analyze the international situation. This time, Lin's father remained silent. He knew very well that at this time, he couldn't say anything. In peacetime, you can say whatever you want. Whether it's right or wrong, it's just for fun. Not now. The previous emotional fluctuations also impacted the older people like them. Young people who play games are no longer focused on electronic products. The mainstays of the family no longer have time to worry about complaints. When the elderly who are old and not sensitive to information feel the change in the atmosphere, it is already very serious. Their generation is not completely safe, and many of them have also taken up arms and went to the battlefield. They have a much better understanding of war than these children who grew up in peacetime after the establishment of the country. At that time, being a B was a way out, and the proportion of people who had been B was higher than now, and their acceptance and awareness of this situation were much higher than that of young people. Many elderly people were so distressed that they burst into tears when they saw the scenes of countless children sacrificing their lives for the country during the artillery fire. They also wanted to do something, but they were too old. They couldn't run or lift a gun. What's more, the weapons now are advanced and are no longer what they used to be. But compared with the energetic young people, these elderly people with gradually hunched bodies showed enough calmness. The inconspicuous uncles and aunts in the past quickly found their former state. They cooperated tacitly and formed a united front before the young people noticed it. Moreover, as the oldest people in the family, they exerted the rare parental authority in the past. The younger generation watched their parents, grandparents, who used to be carefree, only knew how to farm and walk the birds. The old people who only cared about being happy, kind-hearted, and didn't care about anything, suddenly became the stabilizer of family emotions. When the younger generation was still flustered and confused about the situation, they firmly controlled their emotions and quickly calmed everyone down. It is said that an old man in the family is like a treasure. The advantages of age and experience are highlighted at this time. The restless emotions are also quickly resolved as a family unit, although the panic cannot be completely eliminated. But in the current situation, where the battle is still going on, it is unexpected to maintain a rational and orderly tension, not cause riots, and cooperate with the orders of superiors. This sudden situation moved the upper level, and even the old man couldn't help but sigh. For such a lovely people, they must resist to the end. Let's go back to the phone call of Lin's parents. After several calls were not connected, although Lin's father comforted Lin's mother, saying that it might be a bad signal, or maybe the girl was busy. But looking at his face, it is obvious that he has begun to think wildly. From the first call, the information room of the Special Affairs Office intercepted it. Lin Fan was sitting in the middle eating and drinking, and it was obvious that she was asked to answer the phone at this time. Is it appropriate? The technician informed ZHU Kunjin quietly, then hung up as ordered. But as the phone kept ringing, they connected the microphone and camera of Lin's father and mother's phone. ZHU Kunjin sighed, poor parents in the world, and couldn't bear to let the old couple continue to worry, so he told Lin Fan the situation. Lin Fan stood up, wiped his hands with a tissue, and said with oil in his mouth, I'll go back and answer it on my mobile phone. No, just answer it here, don't run back and forth. ZHU Kunjin added, you don't mind, right? It should be, to care about your recent situation, not involving any privacy. There are more than a dozen people in the information room. Not everyone is happy to answer the phone at home in front of so many people. Lin Fan didn't think much about it. No mind, no mind, you can do whatever you want. These people in the information room are similar to Wang Fengfeng. They know countless secrets. They may not really care about two trivial family matters. Okay, I'll let them get through, but only audio, not video. ZHU Kunjin saw that she was in a mess and thought it would be better not to cause trouble by video. Okay. Lin Fan expressed his understanding. The environment in the Special Affairs Office is special, and it is easy to expose the equipment and other things by video. The two people had their own ideas, and the result was the same, and the call was connected soon. Hello? Hello? Xianfan? Lin's mother's loud voice came over. You damn girl, why did you take so long to answer the phone? Lin Fan listened to the scolding echoing in the information room, and suddenly his eyes felt a little sore, and his heart was numb. It's over, she must have a mental problem, and she felt happy when being scolded. Taking the intercom device handed over by Wu Yusen, she calmed down and cleared her throat. I'm busy, didn't you hear me? What are you busy with? You're still busy at this time. Lin's mother cursed and finally saw that there was nothing on the screen. Hey, where are you? Why is the screen black? Let me see. Lin's father snatched the phone. Is the camera upside down? He clicked on the phone and only saw the picture of the old couple, and the other side was always dark. Huh? What's going on? He tapped the phone. After hearing Lin Fan's voice, his heart was relieved. Dad, stop tapping. Lin Fan heard a loud knocking sound coming from the public speaker and quickly stopped it. My phone is broken. The camera can't be used. Why is the camera broken? Lin's mother's thoughts began to deviate again. Hello. Lin Fan didn't want to waste time on these meaningless conversations, pretending that the signal was bad. Hello. Can you hear me? Why is there no sound? Is the signal bad? I don't know. Which little cutie was quick to play the signal interference sound. Father Lin also remembered that the signal was unstable at this time and hurriedly asked her how she was doing. Lin Fan picked the good points and said that the old couple should take care of themselves. When Mother Lin started to talk about irrelevant topics again, the crackling sound of electricity sounded again. Lin Fan's voice gradually became unclear and disappeared in the busy tone. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. Minister Lin's acting skills are getting better. Wang Fengfeng turned around, clapped his hands and laughed. There were also sporadic laughter from the side. They had seen too many brave scenes of Xingqian and suddenly saw Lin Fan pretending that the signal was not good to deal with his family. They all felt that the contrast was strong. Hi. Lin Fan handed the things in his hand to Wu Yusen, clasped his fists and arched. I'm sorry to make you laugh. I will try to win the little golden man in the future. The information room suddenly burst into laughter. Minister Lin's straightforward and unpretentious personality is really good. Lin Fan smiled and patted her clothes. It was just right that she had eaten and drunk enough, and her family had also reported that they were safe, so she should also move around. The wisdom of the elderly can only be reflected in special times. I wish my grandma good health and a long life. Chapter 610. Stars Depart. Lin Fan still couldn't hide the fact that she was bald. Wu Yusen helped her get combat uniforms from the logistics department and found an unused room next to the information room for her to change. She quickly changed out of the large hospital gown, and when she habitually wanted to tie her hair up, she touched it twice, but didn't touch any hair. She touched it again and was shocked. There was no mirror nearby, so she could only run out and take a rough look at the glass door. Based on the result of her touch, Lin Fan felt very complicated for a while. Wu Yusen. She hugged her head and rushed into the information room, shouting, quick, hat. Everyone who heard the noise turned their heads and saw Lin Fan wearing combat uniforms, touching her bald head that didn't match her at all, and her face was red with annoyance. Although she was unhappy, she was far from the anger, collapse, and crying they had expected. Wu Yusen quickly grabbed the soft hat with the video system installed and tried to help her put it on, but Lin Fan waved it away with one hand. No, I'll do it myself. Lin Fan grabbed the hat and tidied the messy hair on her head with one hand. No one of you told me and let me walk around the station with such a head. How many people saw it along the way? It was really. She didn't dare to complain to ZHU Kunjin, glared at Wu Yusen hatefully, and quickly put on the hat. My fault. Wu Yusen laughed beside him. I'm not hiding it from you. I just don't know how to say it. You've just gotten better. It would be bad if your mood fluctuates again because of this. When Lin Fan looked up, the crowd of onlookers turned their heads, tapping on the keyboard sporadically, pretending that they were working without distraction. Fluctuation? She blinked, thinking of the news she had seen before, where girls often cried because of failed hairstyles, and asked, are you afraid that I will cry? Wu Yusen smiled. Isn't it normal to cry? Who would be happy with this head? Even ZHU Kunjin would be unhappy. Not to mention a girl like Lin Fan. Girls always care about their image. That's not the case. After putting on the hat, Lin Fan was no longer shy. She shook her head calmly, which was unexpected by everyone. It's just hair. It's not like it won't grow out. It's just these scars and scabs. Who gave them to me? If it doesn't work, can't you just shave them off? Ah. Everyone was dumbfounded. Forget it. It's too late now. Let's talk about it when I come back. Lin Fan shrugged helplessly and complained to Wu Yusen, "You don't even know how to cover up my ugliness. How many people have seen my unlucky appearance?" After that, she glared at Wu Yusen again and rushed out the door. Hey, Wu Yusen stretched out his hand to stop her, but in the end, he watched her disappear outside the door and said nothing. "Don't worry." ZHU Kunjin saw Wu Yusen staring at the door and comforted him. Lin Fan knows her limits. Wu Yusen looked back at ZHU Kunjin, lowered his eyes quietly, and disagreed. Know your limits? Do you know your limits? To go on stage and fight hard just half a day, after waking up from the sterile box? He turned around silently, and looked up at the tense battle on the big screen. Even with the intervention of the two big brothers, Senior Brother and Master Kaiensu, the situation on the field was still not optimistic. Gro was indeed ruthless this time. The number of enemies was too large, like throwing nails on the beach. It was not easy to eliminate the enemy bit by bit, while minimizing the losses of Langsing. The two big brothers were busy like spinning tops, flying here and there, not to mention Apollo, who was inferior in skills. But compared with the lower combat effectiveness, limited by ability, and only able to target the scattered Mecha squad or even the local combat power of Langsing, the three of them were already the only three effective combat forces on Langsing. To put it bluntly, Langsing is now almost being suppressed, relying on a few highly capable guys to fight against the advantage every second, barely holding on without losing too obviously. If Xingqian joins in, it will undoubtedly make such an oppressive situation much clearer. Maybe it can be leveled, or maybe it can turn defeat into victory, even if it is just a slight weakness. After all, everyone has been tired for a long time. Xingqian's appearance now can be regarded as a new injection of combat power. But can it really be counted like this? The scars on Lin Fan's skin are still clearly defined. She just woke up yesterday afternoon. If she goes up before dawn today, Wu Yusen has mixed feelings. He is worried that Lin Fan's body can't bear it. He also hopes that the tense situation can change. At this time, it seems that all the forces in the world can be mobilized on Langsing, except Xingqian. Wu Yusen once again lamented his powerlessness. He should do something, but in fact, he can only watch here. Don't worry, ZHU Kunjin walked over and patted his shoulder with a smile. Lin Fan is not a stubborn person. If she says it's okay, we should believe her. She's not stubborn. Wu Yusen wanted to refute, but thinking about it again, Lin Fan is indeed not a stubborn person. She doesn't like to cause trouble or get involved in trouble. She prefers to stay at home rather than being lively. When she just returned to the Special Affairs office, she would shrink and hide behind him when she encountered something. I don't know, when she started to face danger calmly. When I'm not around, she can still take decisive action to protect the people. When she needs to take responsibility, she won't back down either. As the strongest fighter on the surface, she has never bullied others. On weekdays, she is still the same home girl who eats, drinks and has fun. She would never sit if she can lie down, and would rather lie on the sofa in a daze, unwilling to move at all. In terms of personality, Lin Fan is indeed not a strong person, but Wu Yusen looked at the big screen again. This kind of situation, where people are suffering, she can't just turn a blind eye to it. Xingqian's figure soon appeared on the big screen. She was so fast that the screen in the information room had to switch quickly to track her figure. The command of the main control was synchronized in the information room. Wu Yusen watched and listened silently. There was an unspeakable torment in his heart, clamoring to become stronger. It should be said that the surveillance of each country is the most advanced in the world. There are more than a dozen probes on a pole, and there is a monitoring point every 30 or 50 meters. Traffic monitoring, civilian monitoring, sky eye system. No matter why they were installed, these cameras played a huge role in the absence of satellite signals. Even if they were damaged by enemy attacks, they can still piece together a complete video picture. Compared with country H, those countries that advocate freedom are not only short of military power, but also have to face the sad situation of not being able to figure out the situation. It's really, I regret it. Lin Fan listened to the order of the general control and cleared it quickly in order. Her body still hurts. Whether it's her internal organs or her flesh, it hurts. She has to hold the spear in her hand very hard to prevent it from falling. Every movement, every swing, she has to exert more strength than before, and she has to endure greater pain. Lin Fan gritted her teeth and injured it. It hurts. Anyway, she won't die. If she doesn't take action now, her conscience will hurt for the rest of her life. That's something she will regret. Thinking of the mother and baby who were not saved before, and the sea of corpses and blood in the subway station, Lin Fan couldn't stay awake at all. If she didn't want to think about the past and regret in the future, she had to rush, kill, make up for her mistakes. She took every bit of pain as a stimulus, so that she gave up thinking, and attacked more fiercely and quickly. To everyone on the screen, Xingqian was in very good condition. Compared with before the injury, it was even better. Could it be that every time a serious injury is repaired, it also improves physical fitness? Many people had this idea. Only Cui Yan had a deep look in his eyes. He repeatedly checked the report in his hand, and his brows tightened. Chapter 611 Reversal. Li Chunhua felt very tired. Although the mecha was full of energy, his body couldn't stand it. This kind of physical fatigue can't be made up by sleeping and eating every day. But he had to continue. Is it easy to be a mecha pilot? In the past, he would definitely say yes, and then say countless beautiful tricks. But now, he just wants to finish the battle early and rest early. Fortunately, the mecha has a power-assisted structure. He thought with a wry smile. Otherwise, with his current ability, he might not even pass the initial screening of the bionic mecha pilot. Li Chunhua's eyes were sore. He was obviously a tough guy, but at this moment, he inexplicably wanted to cry. Damn, when will this day end? Gritting his teeth, his muscles burst, and he raised his hand and shot at the bugs coming out of the aircraft in front of him. Pooh. After solving a few bugs, he quickly dodged the attack of the aircraft. After a narrow escape, he turned back and spat angrily. Sooner or later, I'll let you. Before the word "diarrhea" came out, a flash of white light passed. Li Chunhua retreated quickly and cautiously, but saw a white light rushing straight towards the aircraft that had just attacked him. A sonic boom roared, and blue-purple lightning struck from midair. Li Chunhua was startled, and from the afterglow of the lightning, he saw a white mecha figure rising into the sky. Lin. He wanted to shout, but then he remembered that this was not Lin Fan. Looking ahead, the aircraft that had been so powerful just now was falling to the ground with smoke, and there was a huge hole on it. Hey. Li Chunhua was suddenly happy, and the fatigue on his body seemed to have lightened. I won't be polite about this. He rushed over happily. Checking the internal condition of the damaged aircraft was also the job of their bionic armor team. Preventing fish from slipping through the net inside. Jin Gang. Jin Gang. Song Ren's voice came from the headset. What happened just now? Was it on your side? He and Li Chunhua were in the same area, but separated by a certain distance. So he heard the movement from a long distance, but he didn't know the situation, and was afraid that Li Chunhua would have an accident. It's okay, boss. Li Chunhua was talking in a daze. It was Xingqian card that just passed by and struck her. Impossible. Song Ren rejected it outright. Xingqian card ran out of energy yesterday. It's impossible for it to appear in a short time. Ah. Li Chunhua was stunned and stopped in midair. Then did you see Xingqian? Song Ren's voice was tense. Li Chunhua thought carefully. I didn't get close, but it should be her. With such a strong electric current, no one else can hit it. See? Is Lin Fan okay? Lin Fan okay? This is what Song Ren wanted to ask. After he asked the main control, he learned that Xingqian had become more powerful after recovering from the injury. He hadn't spoken for a long time, and his attacks were more powerful than before. Boss. Boss. Li Chunhua kept shouting in the headset. Is it Lin Fan? Is it her? Is she okay? It's her. Song Ren eliminated several threats in succession, and found a shelter to take a breath. He was also very tired, and the Iron Will could not withstand excessive physical fatigue. If he was asked to fight the enemy with bare hands, he would have no problem holding on for a few more days. But the physical strength required to drive a mecha is really extraordinary. But wasn't Lin Fan seriously injured? Li Chunhua searched slowly inside the aircraft. She was so seriously injured. How long has it been since she recovered? When Lin Fan was injured in 800, they went to see her every day. They knew it wouldn't be so easy to recover. Last time, she was just pierced through, but this time her entire back was blown off. It's not that the last time wasn't serious, but in comparison, it's impossible to recover so quickly. Song Ren knew this, and he sighed. She should be able to move after healing. Xingqian's healing ability is very strong, and this kind of large area wound can usually heal in a short time. But the internal damage and deficit, however, did not fully recover as the body heals. In other words, Lin Fan only looks good on the surface, but in fact, Li Chunhua quickly understood what Song Ren meant and spoke. Then why didn't she rest more? Li Chunhua stood in the dark corridor, looking at the insect corpses all over the ground and the aircraft that was as quiet as a tomb, and her nose was sore. He sniffed. We didn't do enough, did we? It was a question, but also an affirmative sentence. The Mecha team didn't know the overall situation, but they knew the energy they put in every day and the actual enemy situation they faced. The situation was terrible. That's why Lin Fan couldn't rest properly and went on the field with an injury. Damn it. Li Chunhua sniffed again. We can't be outdone by the girls. He tried to wave his sore arms, exhaled a long breath, and felt that his body seemed to be much lighter. Song Ren looked at the sky and waited for a long time, but didn't see the figure he wanted to see. There was another movement in front, so he rushed out and warned Li Chunhua. Be careful. You too. Li Chunhua replied, running quickly in the aircraft. He could try harder and do more. Lin Fan followed the order of the main control and flew all the way, solving the threats along the way. She rushed in a hurry and wanted to solve more threats in a limited time, so she didn't observe the surroundings carefully. Usually they would just strike the aircraft and leave, so naturally they didn't see Jin Gang hiding on the side. She was almost used to the pain in her body. I don't know who said that appropriate pain can keep people excited to a certain extent. In this repetitive and monotonous killing session, people really feel tired. Lin Fan felt that, if it weren't for the constant stimulation of pain in her body, she might slowly slack off. So, this is also good. Pain can make her alert and maintain an efficient state. It's good. Lin Fan used various excuses to convince herself that the action could be smoother and faster. The energy from eating and drinking a lot before also played a role. Although she felt pain, she didn't feel the energy deficit in a short period of time. Despite this, she still didn't dare to take it lightly. She knew the defects of her physical condition, and this state would definitely consume more energy. So she kept speeding up, fearing that she would suddenly run out of energy and couldn't continue on the field. She swept the battlefield with this gust of wind-like attack and quickly reversed Land Crossing's defeat. The big guys behind the screen even saw the dawn of victory. Great. The P country's strategy department shared collectively. They had been suppressed by the alien forces for a few days, and now they finally turned the tables. Even if it was only a slight advantage, if they continued, the advantage would increase proportionally. Ovi rubbed his chin, looking at Ru Xingqian's swift and resolute appearance. His eyes became more interested. He curled his lips and smiled. What a terrible woman. Chapter 612 Difficult. Because of the slight advantage brought by Xingqian, the overall momentum of Langsing has returned. In the absence of additional reinforcement by Gro, this situation seems to have hope of a turnaround. But, is it really so? No. First of all, the fatigue level of the bionic armor team is almost full. No matter how strong a person is, his physical strength is limited. Secondly, Apollo is no longer able to do it. He has been on the field longer than the bionic armor. The bionic armor can rest for a while in the evening, but he has been working non-stop and has hardly rested. Although the physical strength of the Mecha man is better than that of ordinary people, no matter how strong he is, his body is still a person. In this way, Xingqian's advantage on the field is short-lived. It won't be long before she replaces Apollo, who is about to go off the field to rest. The bionic armor team and other superpowers and ground combat capabilities are even worse at the moment. The two big guys are resistant to fatigue, but the eldest brother acts as he pleases, and the 1000-year-old master has shown obvious impatience. He opened his mouth and swallowed the spacecraft and the ground buildings in one go. ZHU Kunjin cried several times before he managed to persuade the man to stop and continue to work patiently. To be honest, asking the boss to do this is really a waste of money. But in the absence of other knives, no matter how wasteful the knife is, it can only be used like this. On the other hand, there is no abundant spiritual energy on Langsing. It is not easy for the special agents of the special office to maintain the operation of the barrier. Many barriers that have been attacked more are already trembling and about to break at any time. In the past, all kinds of magic tools and talismans that they cherished were used like flowing water to strengthen defense, replenish spiritual power, and increase attack. The capital accumulated by the special office for decades was almost shaken upside down at this moment. Even so, ZHU Kunjin didn't care about the pain and urged the equipment department to work overtime, and it would be better to rush to make a batch of emergency equipment to supplement the field staff. Kuan Yin Dan was not well groomed to begin with, and now he looked like a wild man with a scruffy beard. The continuous consumption of his spiritual energy made him skinny and bony, as if he had been drained of it. After he sent out the latest batch of magic tools, he found ZHU Kunjin. This is not a solution. Kuan Yin Dan's eyes were sunken, and he could hardly hide his fatigue. Wu Yusen saw that he was swaying even when standing, so he quickly took a chair and forced him to sit down. Kuan Yin Dan wanted to thank him, but he turned his head a little, feeling tired, and then he let it go. Facing ZHU Kunjin, he frowned slightly and said again, "This is not a solution. Our spiritual energy has also been drained. The equipment department needs to make magic tools, no matter how big or small, and it also requires spiritual energy. It is not easy to make magic tools in the past, not to mention that time is not waiting for anyone in this situation. Everyone knows that they are anxious, and no one complains, but the spiritual energy is exhausted, so they have to stop. Thank you for your hard work." ZHU Kunjin sighed in his heart when he saw Kuan Yin Dan's appearance. "Not really." Kuan Yin Dan rubbed his face and raised his weak head. "How long will it take to leave the barrier?" ZHU Kunjin looked at the number on the screen and replied helplessly. 4 days. Kuan Yin Dan followed his gaze and naturally saw it. He choked for a while and smiled bitterly. "That's really." He shook his head slowly and didn't finish his words. Everyone knew what he meant. They were almost out of ammunition and food. There were still 4 days left. I really didn't know what to do. Before Master Kaiensu sent energy to the world tree, Wu Yusen patted his shoulder. "We speculate that the actual time to open the barrier should be advanced. How early will it be?" Kuan Yin Dan asked. Wu Yusen smiled and shook his head. "The details are not clear yet, but no matter what, it shouldn't take 4 days. Kuan Yin Dan's mouth corners turned down, looking at the huge digital countdown, and then looking at the real scenes on the screen, revealing a bitter smile. "Okay, I'll go back too." He stood up, hold on a little longer, and think about whether there is any other way. ZHU Kunjin didn't stop him, and Wu Yusen took the initiative to send him to the door. Watching Kuan Yin Dan stagger out, the smile on his face also disappeared. "Director." He walked back to ZHU Kunjin and squatted down, asking softly, "Is there really no other available combat power?" All the combat power of Langsing was basically out in full force, and they were all exhausted. The number of various aircraft of GRO has decreased sharply, but it still poses a considerable threat to Langsing at the moment. If there is no further reinforcement, we can only continue to consume, delay, and wait for the barrier in time. And this helpless delay will not be pleasant for both the people who are fighting and the people who are monitoring. Anything, as long as it reaches the torment stage, the time will become infinitely extended. Wu Yusen clenched his fists. It would be better if he had stronger abilities and he could go out to kill 1 or 2 insects. But the current situation is that in the face of such an overstandard attack, a single soldier like him in a chaotic situation will not only fail to play the previous advantages, but may also become a drag. ZHU Kunjin calmly drank a sip of hot tea, watching Apollo go off the field to rest. The situation in the Western Hemisphere began to become tense again, and spit out the tea stems in his mouth. "Except for me, all the field superpowers in the Institute are outside." He put the teacup on the small table beside him. "Now, except for the Mecha and the boss, everyone is arranged to attack in a team. Even if I go on the field, I can't help." ZHU Kunjin was also anxious. He was more uncomfortable than John Woo. John Woo couldn't go out because of his limited ability, and he, although he was capable, had to stay in the special envoy office and coordinate tasks because of his position. At this time, when more strength was a contribution, his heart was far less calm than his face. In fact, there was another big killer in the institute, Mr. Kyan, who was in seclusion. ZHU Kunjin had thought about asking Mr. Kyan to take action, but after hesitating and struggling, he decided to hold it down. Everyone knew Mr. Kyan's physical condition. According to his temperament, he would definitely take action if he knew the situation. But because of this temperament, he dared not say it. It only took a few seconds to save Lin Fan, but Kyan Leo backfired, and the consequences were already terrible. Now, Gro's situation is more troublesome than Lin Fan's. It's unknown whether the old injury has healed, and if Kyan Leo takes action again. Not to mention, whether it can solve the current crisis. Even if it can, the price will certainly not be small. ZHU Kunjin thinks it is not worth it to gamble the future with Kyan Leo's safety. Compared with exhausting Kyan Leo's life in exchange for an unknown outcome, it is cheaper to wait for Kyan Leo to recover naturally, and when the time is right, he will use the time reversal technique to overwrite the previous world save with a lower cost. The former is unknown, but Kyan Leo will definitely be ruined. This is a rare kind and communicative boss. The latter can do its best to avoid damaging Kyan Leo's body, but the on Langsing will suffer once. But if Kyan Leo can restore the dead and destroyed buildings on Langsing to the state before the accident, even if it can't be fully restored, it is better to restore it to the present state than to be completely wiped out. On the contrary, it would be a great loss if such a good-natured boss like Kyan Leo was lost forever because they wanted to save him temporarily. ZHU Kunjin even communicated with the old man about this matter. After receiving his affirmation, he became more determined. No matter how difficult it is, even if they fight to the last man. Kyan Leo, you can't move. The revival of Langsing depends on him alone. I know everyone wants to see it. I also feel uncomfortable with this feeling of frustration. However, Gro is at a super realistic technological level, and it is easy to beat Langsing. This is the background setting. I hope everyone can understand. If there was no Lin Fan, if there were no superpowers from the Special Affairs Office, Langsing would be gone directly, and there would be no need to fight for so long. There are only 2 mechas, and the superpowers are not enough because of the lack of spiritual energy. Among the 3 bosses, one is in seclusion and cannot be disturbed. One helps Lin Fan work but is disobedient, and the other is used to freedom and can't be shouted. In addition, after a long time, everyone is tired. So Langsing is now in a stalemate, where it can neither advance nor retreat, and it can neither defeat nor win. It is certainly difficult, but there is nothing that can be done about it. Can you understand? The difference in high technology is really huge, just like using a musket to fight a primitive man. I have actually cheated here, and weakened it a lot. But it is a bit outrageous that only 2 mecha men or a superpowered person can kill Gro, who can jump to the door of Langsing in a few seconds, right? Isn't it? Here, John Woo wants to become stronger more than once. Since Mr. Kyan mentioned it, it is not just talk. He is coming out. Am I spoiling the plot? I'm afraid that you will feel depressed and uncomfortable after watching it, so I will spoil it. It will be easy after this battle, so bear with it. Chapter 613, Mantis trying to stop a chariot. The advantage brought by Xingqian was wiped out after Apollo left the court. Antonio was carried back with a limp body. After seeing Xingqian's figure on the big screen, he was happy at first, and then he cursed. What did I say? Ovi, with a distressed expression on his face, helped Antonio pass the wine. Seeing that his shaking hands could not lift it, he kindly held the cup and put it into his mouth. H country doesn't treat her as a human being. Antonio finished a glass of wine and felt relieved. Glancing at Ovi's fox-like smug expression, he thought, how much better can you be? Ovi quickly filled another glass and handed it over. Seeing that Antonio had no intention of refutation, he continued to whisper in his ear. Antonio's face was pale, and he kept drinking. He squinted his eyes and watched the agile movement of Xingqian on the screen. His brows were frowning and couldn't relax. It shouldn't be. Is the repair speed so fast? Antonio drank a lot of wine. The fragrant liquor leaked from the corner of his mouth along with his rough movements, slipped off his clothes, dripped onto the chair and the ground, and exuded a burst of wine aroma. OV didn't care about these expensive wines at all, and filled his glasses one by one with his own hands. Slow down, slow down. He smiled like a mama-san, with a distressed look on his face. You've been busy for so long. It's time to have a good rest now. Antonio didn't say anything, staring at the white figure of Xingqian, still drinking quickly and anxiously. After Xingqian came on the court, as the most obedient combat force, the general controller ordered, wherever he was directed, which was simply refreshing. The Western Hemisphere, which was vacant, because of Apollo's departure, continued to ask for help, and the general controller immediately dispatched Xingqian and the eldest brother to go there. As for the 1000-year-old master, let him do whatever he wants. Le Zhengyuan couldn't hide his surprise when he saw Xingqian's figure. He saw Lin Fan's injury with his own eyes. Although he didn't understand the situation of their mechas, it was impossible for him to recover so quickly from such a serious injury and put on armor and go into battle immediately. He asked Zhu Kunjin a few questions and then thought of Lin Fan's stubborn character and sighed softly. Okay, let's be a good person to the end. This kid is not easy. Just like this, when the sun was at its zenith, the battle situation on the field fell back to a tie, and as the Mecha team gradually withdrew, the defeat slowly increased. Only 2 people from the second generation of mechas were still on the field. Among the first generation of mechas, Gu, as the driver with the worst physical fitness, had just withdrawn from the Mecha. Everyone was challenging their physical limits, and it was not easy to hold on until now. Gu was supported by someone to retreat to the logistics vehicle, but a shadow suddenly appeared in the air. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. The person who supported Gu dragged him to the ground and rolled to a nearby bunker. At the same time, several energy guns were launched and fired accurately at the target. Just as Gu was pressed to the ground and couldn't move, several pieces of broken insect corpses fell beside him, which were the result of being hit by the energy gun at the same time. After the logistics team quickly cleared the interference, they pulled up Gu, who was already unable to move, and quickly pushed him into the car. As soon as the armored door was closed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and had time to ask Gu, "Are you okay?" Gu shook his head gently, leaning his head against the hard car body, allowing the medical staff to come forward to check, and did not forget to inform the teammates who were still fighting about the raid. These scums know how to take advantage of others. Are you not injured? Gao Fei always likes to compete with Gu on weekdays, but even if they compare like this, the relationship between the two is not something that ordinary people can compare. No, I just want to remind you to be careful. Gu didn't have much strength to begin with, and he was pounced on hard by someone, so he couldn't say he felt comfortable. Be especially careful when you come out. Okay, stop humming, it's like that. Gao Fei couldn't bear to hear Gu's weak voice. Hurry back. After everyone else said they knew, Gu couldn't hold on any longer and fell sideways on the backseat of the car. The others hurriedly pulled him, and the medical staff came forward to check and found that he had a slight fever. Injured? The general control asked. No, it may be excessive fatigue, excessive physical strength, and great mental pressure. The medical staff have been following the Mecha these days and can see how hard they are working. Then take him back quickly, take a rest, and treat his illness. Don't let him come out again. The general manager spoke personally. They can all see how hard these Mecha pilots are working. Although the others didn't have a fever, they were not much better than Gu. It's hard to say whether he can go next time after this. The combat power has been reduced again and again, and the general manager is anxious, but there is no good way. Even the bravest Mecha captain, Song Ren, the former king of soldiers, made several mistakes in succession. The others? Have all the military forces been deployed? He could only turn to ask his own people. Yes, all of them have been deployed. The people below replied, the personnel are also very tired, and with this level of concentrated fire, the ammunition is rapidly decreasing. The general sighed silently and asked about the situation of Zhu Kunjin's superpowers. After learning that everyone's spiritual power was also in danger of running out, and it was difficult to replenish it, the general, who was always resolute and swift, could not speak for a long time. Song Ren felt that he had really reached his limit, and the breath in his helmet began to heat up. He knew he should leave, but thinking about Lin Fan, who was still fighting hard with injuries, he felt that he should not give up so easily. His vision gradually began to blur, and he finally got the upper hand with reason, reported to the main control, and moved closer to the logistics vehicle. When he was approaching, countless insects suddenly appeared behind the car. The soldiers reacted quickly and activated the energy guns. The two sides exchanged fierce fire. Song Ren drove Fu Guang to help, trying to quickly eliminate the pests, and at the same time, did not forget to remind him, don't take it lightly, the insects can't appear alone, there must be nearby. Before he finished speaking, a small aircraft suddenly jumped out of the woods and rushed straight towards the logistics vehicle. Although the logistics vehicle was fully armored, this level of hardness was no problem against insects, but it was completely vulnerable to the much larger aircraft. Song Ren rushed over and used his shoulders and back to support the aircraft and block the vehicle. But no matter how small the small aircraft was, it was much larger than the Mecha. He was like a mantis trying to stop a car, feeling the huge weight pressing down on him. His already exhausted body was unable to release the burden, and something stretched out from the inside of the aircraft, pressing against his head forward. He even heard the sound of his neck cracking. Song Ren began to feel dizzy, his ears were buzzing, and it seemed very noisy around him. Then, he suddenly felt a sharp pain from the back of his neck, and the hot and cold indescribable body sensations all surged up. There was a red light in front of his eyes. He tried to focus his sight in a trance. He saw in the eyepiece that Fu Guang's neck was damaged. He didn't know how long the danger warning sounded, but he didn't notice it. Because the neck of the Mecha needs to move, the inner armor is a scaly structure, and is relatively thin. Despite the 818 coating, it is not unbreakable in front of Grow. Song Ren vaguely saw red blood dripping down the Mecha to the ground. Is he injured? A trace of doubt flashed through his mind, and his consciousness fell into darkness. Song Ren was injured. This person, I'm thinking about whether to write him. What do you think? Originally, I wanted to abuse him here, but considering that Baozi said that I abused the protagonist before, I was a little afraid. I don't think that part is abused, maybe because it is not as detailed as the 800 time. I want to abuse this part, but I'm afraid it will be too exciting. Oh, it's so difficult. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 614, Kain Leo's Way. In the quiet stone room, the white-haired man slowly opened his eyes. His pupils, as bright as the stars, were filled with doubt. Just now, there seemed to be a spiritual power vibration sweeping across his closed-door barrier. Although he felt the breath of the little guy from it, such a huge spiritual power scan seemed to be confirming something, which was very abnormal. He lowered his eyes and stretched out his hand to count twice. He suddenly raised his head, brushed his sleeves and stood up, walked through the suddenly appeared white light curtain, and stepped into the bright room. ZHU Kunjin was numb from waiting in the information room. Suddenly, he felt a surge of spiritual power around him. He alertly took action to defend himself, but he didn't want to see someone who surprised him. Mr. Kain? His mind was blank for a moment. Why did you come out of seclusion? When everyone heard the voice, they realized that there was an extra person in the information room. The man had long white hair and wore a loose robe. His always kind face was now full of seriousness. Zio ZHU. He scolded. Such a big thing. Why didn't you inform me? Mr. Kain. ZHU Kunjin, the boss of the Special Affairs Office, was as embarrassed as a child who had made a mistake in front of the white-haired man. Mr. Kain waved his sleeves lightly. Let's not talk about the past. What is the situation now? He was not familiar with technological products, but on the big screen, two familiar figures could be seen clearly. The two guys were on the field, their movements were skillful, and they didn't look like they had just come on. And the white Mecha, Familiar yet strange. Mr. Kine could only think of an acquaintance. Is that Mr. Lin? Yes. ZHU Kunjin walked to the boss with his head lowered and explained. Since you saved her last time, her mecha has evolved into this. He also used the most concise language to talk about Gro's attack and the crisis on Langsing. The enchantment of the ugly woman. After listening, old Kine nodded slowly. So that's it. The enchantment is about to be activated. Yeah. ZHU Kunjin responded before reacting. What did you say? The enchantment is about to be activated. After old Kine went into seclusion, no one dared to disturb him, except the time he saved Lin Fan. He had just been informed about the enchantment. How come no one else knew when the enchantment would be activated? But old Kine knew it as soon as he heard it. Is this the ability of the boss? Old Kine talked about the spiritual power vibration he felt before. If I'm not mistaken, the ability of the world tree has spread all over the world. What just now was considered a self-test. The enchantment will be activated soon. ZHU Kunjin was completely confused. Spiritual power vibration? Is there? How come he didn't feel it at all? Although there was no news from Jin Sichin, old Kine's words were credible in his heart. That's good. That's good. He finally laughed from the bottom of his heart. It's a good thing that the enchantment is about to be activated. It's a good thing. He wanted to let old Kine go back to seclusion. Anyway, the barrier will be open soon. If they hold on a little longer, they won't have to trouble old Kine to do anything. But old Kine saw through his thoughts and interrupted him to ask. ZHU Kunjin, why do you practice Taoism? Why practice Taoism? ZHU Kunjin was stunned. At first, it was to be different. Then it was because I had no choice. And now it's just going with the flow. Old Kine didn't wait for him to answer and continued. My Tao is a Tao of all living beings. How can I turn a blind eye to the suffering of so many lives? ZHU Kunjin opened his mouth to speak. I know what you want to say. Old Kine smiled. The 5 deteriorations of heavenly beings. Yes, this is why they dare not bother old Kine. They are afraid of losing the big picture because of the small. If you are afraid and hesitate, how can you go against the will of heaven? Your body will be weakened, but your mind will be tempered. It is both destiny and opportunity. People of our generation are cultivating against the will of heaven. If you are cowardly, why bother climbing this ladder to heaven? Old Kine was like a kind elder. His voice was gentle and persuasive, but not harsh. However, it sounded like a huge bell above ZHU Kunjin's head. Even the computer technicians who knew nothing about superpowers felt that something in their heads seemed to be clearer, and something in their hearts was more determined. It seemed that the whole person was sublimated in an inexplicable way. Old Kine was not a preaching person. Seeing that ZHU Kunjin had some insights, he stopped. It must be difficult to unfold the barrier covering Langsing. Let me help you. He smiled and waved his hand gently, and a white light curtain appeared beside him. Hey, ZHU Kunjin saw him step in and shouted. You need to bring a communication device so that you can follow us. A black shadow the size of a talisman paper jumped out of the white light. ZHU Kunjin hurriedly took it in his hand. When he looked up again, the light curtain had already disappeared. Before he could think about it, the voice of Kine Leo came from his hand. People of our generation don't need to rely too much on other means. Why not use this thing for communication? ZHU Kunjin looked down and saw a jade sound transmission note in his hand. Quan Yingdong and his friends can also make sound transmission notes. However, due to the limitations of spiritual power and ability, there are only paper ones. Moreover, there are restrictions on the transmission distance, usage time, etc. Compared with mobile phones and headphones, these instant communication devices are really inferior. But Kine Leo's Jade Sound transmission note is different. Not to mention that Kine Leo's products must be exquisite. Just using Jade as a carrier is itself a super quality small magic tool. Not only can it be used repeatedly, but also because the user is Kine Leo, it is not limited by distance. Compared with scientific and technological equipment that requires signal and circuit support, it is much more convenient. ZHU Kunjin sighed secretly. The difference between people. He injected a trace of spiritual power into the talisman. The Jade talisman seemed to be activated. hanging near his head, and he didn't need to hold it with his hands. From this point of view, it seems to be much more convenient than electronic devices. The entry of Mr. Kyan has greatly changed the overall situation. He is not as casual as Lezing Yuan King, nor as willful as Mr. Kyan Su. Compared with the two big guys, this one is really like an assistant who obeys the command, and can basically perform according to the will of the general controller. Moreover, his moves are open and closed, and he starts with a spell. The degree of colorfulness is much better than the fireworks show in Diddy Park. He can release multiple superpowers at the same time. With a hand and a wave of his sleeves, large areas of aircraft and insects are gone. This is a rhythm of a cool article. Everyone on the ground and in front of the screen looked up respectfully. So, Mr. Kyan is really ranked first, right? This is the private discussion of the field staff of the Special Affairs Office. Mr. Kyan is a magic cultivator. One magic can break all magics. Isn't it one sword that can break all magics? Then the fact is that the eldest brother has to give in to Mr. Kyan. The joining of Mr. Kyan instantly reversed the situation, and winning seemed not impossible. Especially the people from the Special Affairs Office, who also had a tactical discussion on Mr. Kyan's various spellcasting techniques and cooperation. Compared to the ease of others, Ova's face was even more stinky. "Shouldn't you be happy?" Antonio asked him coldly, while holding a bottle of wine. "This is a great thing worthy of global celebration. Is Ovi crazy? Where did Country H dig these perverts from?" Ovi was in a very complicated mood, glaring at the white-haired Superman on the screen with gritted teeth. One, and another. Chapter 615, Boundary Opening. As soon as old Kyan made a move, Lezing Yuan King and Master Kyan Su felt it. They all knew about old Kyan's situation, and after a moment's pause, they continued their work. Old Kyan had already made a move, so there was no reason for them to stay out of it. On the other side, ZHU Kunjin had already contacted Jin Sichin. "Is the barrier going to open?" Jin Sichin covered his phone and quietly looked over to the ugly woman. No movement, still motionless. "Who said it was going to open?" Old Kyan. ZHU Kunjin sighed. He said that there was a spiritual shock that woke him up, but I didn't feel anything at all. I asked several people, and they also said they didn't feel anything. This. Jin Sichin looked at the ugly woman who was still meditating quietly in front of the tree, as if she was dead. "Do you think I should go over and ask?" The ugly woman looked solemn sitting under the tree, and there was really a sense of sacredness. The green leaves on the world tree glowed with fluorescence, reflecting the reflection of the running water. The ugly woman's expressionless face really had the flavor of a goddess. Even though Jin Sichin and she had become close friends and could talk to each other normally, at this moment, he was afraid to go forward, whether it was because of the atmosphere or something else. ZHU Kunjin saw the situation over there through the camera and hesitated again and again. Or, it was actually difficult for him to make a decision. Would going over to ask her interrupt the progress of the ugly woman? Would it affect her mood? Would it put Jin Sichin in danger? There were too many unknowns, and he didn't dare to gamble at this moment. Just as he was unable to say it, the world tree suddenly glowed green. Jin Sichin was blinded by the strong light at the scene, and had to cover his eyes with his arm. But his mobile phone did not block it, and the camera was still recording diligently. The green light went down from the crown of the tree, and when it touched the roots, it suddenly spread out. The green light visible to the naked eye spread out from the world tree like a scanning light wave. "Be careful." ZHU Kunjin shouted as he saw the green light was about to affect Jin Sichin. Jin Sichin heard the prompt and quickly withdrew his hand from blocking his eyes. Seeing the green light, he subconsciously stepped back, but he was not as fast as the light, and was instantly pierced through. "Are you okay?" ZHU Kunjin asked nervously as he watched the camera freeze and the green light gradually dissipate. "It's okay." Jin Sichin touched the place where the light passed through with lingering fear. "I feel nothing." He followed the direction where the light disappeared and turned the camera around. It went outside. Soon, the other field staff guarding the female ugly cave were pierced through by the light one after another. Most said they didn't feel anything, while others said they felt their spiritual power increased. Could it be? ZHU Kunjin had an assumption. Not long after, the Special Affairs Office was also swept by the green light. After ZHU Kunjin experienced it himself, he did feel the spiritual power increase. Many of the field staff guarding outside who were not strong enough in spiritual power were all replenished at this time. What's going on? Everyone was talking about it. Although the office had notified them of the arrival of the green light, why did they bring back the blue one? After learning that it was the energy of the world tree, the original doubts were not resolved, but deepened. The energy of the world tree can restore our spiritual power. Is it so powerful? Then we won't be afraid of running out of mana in the future? Some people were happy. Is there such a good thing? Some cautious people did not dare to believe it easily, without a price. I don't believe it. Amidst various opinions, the energy of the world tree swept across the world. Most people did not know what this green light was, and thought it was another trick of Grow. Country H did not know how to explain it, so it simply pretended not to know. Old Khan looked at the spiritual power vibration, that was more obvious than before, and spread out again, looked in the direction of the starting point, and smiled. Lezing Yuan King and Master Kaiansu also knew it. When Lin Fan was bathed in the green light, she felt that the pain in her body was subsiding quickly. She almost couldn't help but run after the light. This wave of light came quickly and went quickly. It started from the eastern hemisphere and disappeared on the sea surface of the western hemisphere. Then, on Langsing, countless locations launched huge fluorescent green light columns into the sky. In addition to the original location of the world tree, there are also mountains, canyons, and the sea surface. Dozens of huge beams of light shot straight into the sky, as if dozens of fluorescent sticks were inserted into Langsing. It started. The general had been reminded by ZHU Kunjin a long time ago, and had been looking forward to this moment for a long time. After the green light rushed to the sky, it seemed to be blocked by the atmosphere, and no longer went up, but spread around, slowly spreading out a film-like shield. Yes. Someone in the control room actually stood up and jumped. It's the barrier. The deployment of the barrier means that their safety is guaranteed, and Grow can't pose a fatal threat to them in a short time. After such a long and hard resistance, it's finally here. It's still early. The general's mouth curled up, but looking at the slow speed of the barrier, his fists were clenched tightly. Let everyone hold on a little longer, and hold on for the last bit of time. Yes. The voice of the messenger was also excited. They finally made it. ZHU Kunjin also told his men to continue to persevere. The superpowers in the city barrier watched the huge barrier in the sky unfold, and they were all shocked. Oh my god. I can actually see such a great sight in my lifetime. The ugly woman is indeed a goddess. This power is invincible on Langsing. I will go back to worship her photo. Only a few people can speak, and most people are speechless. In the last days of Langsing, their spiritual power growth, recovery, and magic skills are extremely difficult. Now seeing such a huge magic rising slowly, I'm like a delicate grass under a towering tree, which seems extremely small. All the people in Langsing are watching the miracle. OV didn't know that this was another move made by H country. When Antonio said that he felt much better after being penetrated by green light, he thought it was something related to Mecha. Later, the scene of light pillars all over the world made him have bad associations again. Combined with the previous geocentric energy theory, he thought that this might be geocentric energy, which was about to break out of the ground. To a certain extent, his guess was not wrong. The roots of the world tree were rooted in the ground, which could also be said to be another geocentric energy. But after Over's inference, there was a crisis of the surface breaking, and the land sinking into the sea. After a bunch of think tanks discussed it, they felt that it was entirely possible. The more they thought about it, the more scared they became. However, there was no way to intervene. It was not until the light curtain was formed that he realized that he had guessed the wrong direction, and he breathed a sigh of relief. But at the same time, he felt even more depressed. Amidst everyone's joy, wonder, and confusion, the barrier was formed little by little, slowly opening like an umbrella, gradually spreading to adjacent locations, and it seemed that it would be connected into a whole piece in a short time. Grow in the sky suddenly changed direction and rushed towards Langsing. Sorry, the timer is set to October 8th. Chapter 616, Grow's Advance. From space, the cities of H country were almost all covered in small barriers and were hardly damaged. Compared with other places on Langsing that were already destroyed, they were too eye-catching. In addition, the 4 powerful guys who destroyed this operation were all from H country. How could Grow not be angry when all the new and old hatreds were counted together? The people on Langsing did not know the power of the barrier that was about to be deployed, but Grow had seen it. But how could such a shabby low civilization planet have such a high-level guard interception energy shield? Grow didn't understand. It was obvious that, if they wasted more time, the little broken planet would be captured sooner or later. But why did it suddenly reverse? In their opinion, Langsing, which was already struggling to survive, suddenly had another powerful person that made them afraid. That's fine, 1 or 2 more powerful guys like this would only delay time. But who can tell them why this broken planet has a guard interception system? Isn't this something that only appears in high-dimensional civilized galaxies? Grow was surprised, confused, and unhappy. If they had known about this thing earlier, why would they have spent so much effort? The upper echelons, who were already divided, quarreled again. More and more insects advocated retreating. But if they retreat now, all their previous attacks would become a joke, which would be a loss of both the wife and the army. In the vast interstellar space, it is unknown when they can find the next suitable target. No one wants to attack in vain. Since they can't occupy it, they can forget about this broken planet. With the malicious intention of I can't take advantage, and you can't take advantage either, Grow wanted to take advantage of this defense system before it was connected and make a ruthless move. Anyway, they can't get any benefit, so let it be destroyed. OV saw Grow's engine fully running and the main body moving quickly towards country H. He was worried, but also gloating. Oh, what should I do? He said worried words with his thin and cold lips, but the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Country H. The control room was in a mess. After calculation, it is entirely possible that Grow will break in before the barrier unites. The technician quickly reported the survey results. The people on Langsing didn't know that Grow was leaving and thought that it had stepped up its attacks and invaded directly. Grow's size is not small, and the threat of a direct entry is greater than the threat of the previous attacks. The helpless General Control had to inform the 3 big bosses and a Mecha man who were busy on Langsing. Everyone knew that the situation was serious and immediately dropped the original work in their hands and flew up. Kyan, Leo and Xingchen were fine. They were originally in the Eastern Hemisphere, closer. Le Zheng Yuan King and Kyan Su Lord were behind them, rushing over to take some time. Lin Fan was the first to rush out. She was suspended in the outer circle of the atmosphere, looking at the huge Grow above, and an insurmountable idea came into her heart. Xingchen was like a small ant under the tire of the tyrant in front of Grow. The heroic spirit she had accumulated from dismantling various large and small aircraft suddenly disappeared at this moment, and she became at a loss. It's so big. How can we stop it? Lin Fan's mind went blank, and she subconsciously rushed forward, wanting to get ahead of Grow at all costs. But the speed she was always proud of was nothing in front of Grow. Lin Fan used all her strength to get below Grow and parallel with it. Looking up at Grow's huge grey facade, Lin Fan felt for the first time that winning seemed to be not as easy as they thought. She suddenly found that the front structure of Grow changed, and the smooth shell turned into a spike shape. Before she could think of what Grow was going to do, the top of the spike suddenly emitted a dazzling light, and then a blue beam shot straight towards land crossing. Attention. Lin Fan felt her throat cracked. Jero fired a huge beam. Lin Fan didn't know whether land crossing, who had no satellites, but only a waveform receiver, could see this wave of attacks. After she shouted that sentence, she felt her heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidneys were burning. That huge beam attack. Can land crossing withstand it? Her mind was twitching, full of bad ideas, and she continued to rush forward regardless. The ground received the prompt from Xingchen, and knew from the tone that it was bad, but what was worse was that they were completely helpless. The chief pounded his fist on the table and cursed. After Zhu Kunjin got the reply of hold on from the ugly woman, he sat quietly in front of the screen. If it weren't for his thumb and index finger rubbing all the time, I would have thought he was really not nervous. When Lin Fan's voice came, he clenched his 2 fingers tightly. The camera on Langsing can't see the scene in space and can only see a little from the perspective of Xingchen. The aggressive light, like a knife that urges death, stabbed straight at Langsing. At that moment, many images flashed through Zhu Kunjin's mind, like a scrolling lantern, quickly reviewing his life. Despite this, he did not move, and remained calm, and stared at the big screen in front of him. There will be a turnaround. There will be a turnaround. Only the white fingers reflected his inner restlessness. Everyone was waiting quietly. I don't know if I'm waiting for destruction or hope. Suddenly, a flash of light flashed in the air, and the rouge-colored sunset glow suddenly became much brighter. The blue beam shot down from the clouds, touched something, stopped its original downward direction, and bounced back. Zhu Kunjin stood up suddenly, flipped all the chairs to the ground, and made a loud noise, but no one cared at this time. Qian Leo's iconic white hair appeared in the camera. He waved his hand, and different lights and shadows slowly appeared in the empty sky. Everyone in the control room frowned and stared at the big screen until the light and shadow took shape, and Zhu Kunjin's cheerful voice came from the speakers. It's a mirror. Ha 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 ha. Everyone looked again after hearing this. What was hanging in the air was not a huge infinity mirror. Although I don't know what the principle is, but using a mirror to reflect light is also amazing. Everyone felt relieved and looked at Xingqian's perspective again. The reflected beam almost hit Xingqian and hit back at Gro himself. A black hole immediately appeared on the smooth shell. Good man. If this attack had not been stopped and hit land crossing, the consequences could be imagined. A slight discussion was heard in the main control. The chief noticed that the camera's perspective had changed, moving closer to the black hole that had just been punched. Xingqian, what are you doing? Lin Fan was stunned for a moment and continued to fly towards the black hole. Zero is too big, and it is difficult to break through from the outside. It just so happens that there is an extra hole here. I will try to break through from the inside. Gro is so big, no one knows what is inside. Lin Fan did hesitate, but rather than being helpless and watching Gro attack land crossing, she chose to take the risk and rush forward. Give it a try. What if the bicycle turns into a motorcycle? Chapter 617. Qian Leo's tricks. Come back. Several voices rang out at the same time. One was from the general manager, and the other from Zhu Kunjin. But Lin Fan only heard the general manager's voice. She stopped very obediently, swallowed her saliva and said, General Manager, Gro is too big, and the attack just now seems to be nothing to it. Although it just avoided it, how many times can we withstand such attacks? I will go inside, and with the ability of the stars, I will destroy them from the inside. It should have a certain restraining effect on them, right? Before the general manager could refute, the voice of Qian Leo came from the headset. Little friend Lin, you don't have much confidence in me. His voice was soft and gentle, not like he had just intercepted a fatal attack on the planet. Lin Fan didn't know that Qian Leo had come out of retreat. The only contact she had with Qian Leo was the 2 times when she was tested, when she first entered the Special Affairs office. But the special name still made her quickly think of this friendly older mortal. She replied embarrassedly, Mr. Qian, that's not what I meant. I understand. Mr. Qian smiled and continued calmly, you are worried that Gro will continue to attack, and we can't beat 4 hands with 2 fists. That's right, that's what Lin Fan meant. Gro is so big, I don't know how many tricks he has in mind. Although Mr. Qian has come out of retreat, Lin Fan has not forgotten his physical condition. Lin Fan has also seen the actions of the eldest brother and Mr. Qian Suan Langsing. Although they are at ease, they don't look like they can easily deal with Gro. Although Mr. Qian is powerful, he always feels that there is something wrong when he goes head to head with Gro. Just when I thought of this, 2 more spikes appeared on Gro's shell, exactly the same as the one that fired the beam before. 1 or 2 can be blocked, 3 or 4 may also be able to work, but what if there are more? Gro is really too huge. It is like a continent floating in space, which makes Lin Fan subconsciously suppress the despair. On the surface of this mechanical structure, I don't know where there will be attacks. Anywhere is possible, and everywhere can become an attack port. Be careful. Lin Fan warned again. When the ground knew it, 3 beams of light were sent out at the same time. Lin Fan watched with worry, his heart beating like a drum. It seems that little friend Lin knows very little about our methods. Old Qian chuckled. Why don't I show you today? In the sky, the mirror that originally reflected the surrounding scenery suddenly turned into a dark. Then, gray and blue blocks quickly emerged, and there was a bright blue beam in the middle. It's a real scene in space. Someone shouted in the control room. Is it a real scene? How is this done? Most people were puzzled. Without cameras and satellites, how could it be possible to broadcast the scene in space? In addition to doubts, more people developed a strong interest in supernatural powers. Putting aside these complicated emotions, Grow was also the first time to present himself so clearly in front of everyone. The mirror seemed to be able to change angles at will, and they even saw the stars falling below several times. Where did these weird things come from in H country? Amid Over's roar, the beams of light shot straight at H country with great momentum. She was nervous before she saw it, and now she was even more nervous after seeing it. Little friend Lin, said Kan Leo, hanging in the air, his robe moving without wind, smiling as if he had seen nothing. Leave there. Lin Fan was stunned for a moment. She could not see the situation on Langsing, and her eyes were only on Grow and the beam it emitted. Kan Leo waved his hands, made a few complicated and pleasing gestures, and then stopped moving, urging, hurry. The next second Lin Fan saw a black hole suddenly appeared between Langsing and Grow. The beam shot towards Langsing, went straight into the black hole, and she could not see anything. She blinked, suspecting that she had seen it wrong. She hurriedly lowered her altitude and moved towards Langsing to see what was going on. As a result, what surprised and confused her was that above the barrier, at the outer circle of the atmosphere, there was indeed a flat black hole. This black hole expanded at a very fast speed and moved closer to Grow. The beam that entered the black hole did not cause any reaction and just disappeared. Black hole. Many people on the ground clapped their hands and stood up. How can there be a black hole? Is this a black hole? A black hole that can swallow everything? The space agency is now in an uproar. Unfortunately, the black hole creator, Mr. Khan, can't hear their voices at all. After receiving their message summary, the chief also realized the horror of the black hole. But looking at Mr. Khan floating in the air, he thought about it and decided not to disturb him from casting the spell at this time. Lin Fan watched the black hole getting bigger and closer and moving towards Grow. Grow seemed to have realized that something was wrong, and he ignored the attack, reversed the engine, and retreated. But Mr. Khan would never let it get away so easily. He stood at the edge of the barrier, waved his hands, and made some movements. Lin Fan suddenly felt a sudden traction, pulling her towards Grow. Oh, no, it was pulling her towards the black hole. She floated up a little and quickly sank down, following the gravity of Langsing. Maybe it was because she was far away and not in front of the black hole, or for other reasons. Lin Fan spent some effort, but at least she got rid of the attraction. The feeling of being firmly dragged by the magnet was not pleasant. After she got rid of it, she found Kan Leo as soon as possible and stood behind him obediently. It was also at this time that she saw that there was a piece of sky next to her that actually had a live broadcast of space. Safety has been guaranteed, and she watched it with relish. Grow was not as lucky as Lin Fan. The black hole was originally locked on it, and it was facing it head on. The suction force was very strong, and even some floating objects in the surrounding space were pulled closer to the black hole. Grow ran the engine to escape, but with a little bit of pulling, the tip began to be swallowed by the black hole bit by bit. Ha ha ha. Wang Fengfeng clapped happily while sitting on the chair. It escapes, it chases, it can't fly away, even if it has wings. Zhu Kunjan smiled and looked at Kan Leo's relaxed figure. It is not a problem for Kan Leo to perform such a big magic. The problem is, can his body really hold up? There was already chaos inside Grow. It was originally planned to fire a few shots at the little star, preferably to overturn their land plates, and then they would leave, after venting their anger. Why did a black hole suddenly appear here? And it also has a super strong magnetic field. The most taboo thing when sailing in the universe is black holes. Because we don't know what is on the other side of the black hole. If they are sucked in, who knows what they will face? But everyone knows that abnormal situations are not good. Grow is a mobile fortress, with almost all the resources of their planet on it. If they enter a black hole, it is hard to save for their clan. But how to get rid of it? The bugs who advocated evacuation before Kirsten threw their anger at those who insisted on attacking. But they could only watch one end of the fortress sink into the black hole little by little. Lin Fan seemed to be able to feel the huge traction and the helplessness of those bastards and grow. How good it is. Let them also taste the fear. She smiled and looked at Kyan Leo in front of her. Kyan Leo still smiled faintly. But Lin Fan saw that his face was getting older little by little. He was no longer a handsome uncle in his 40s, but had really turned into a weathered old man. The corners of Lin Fan's mouth flattened. Chapter 618, Betting on a Possibility. Lin Fan stood very close to Elder Kyan, so everyone in front of the screen saw this scene. Although most people did not understand supernatural powers, they felt bad when they saw the rapidly aging face. Zhu Kunjin lowered his head, unable to bear to continue looking directly. The aging of appearance is the final stage of the 5 decays of heaven and man. Elder Kyan used himself to find a way out for Lan Xingbo. Zhu Kunjin, what should we do? The general asked anxiously. At this point, the arrow has been put on the string, and there is no return. We can only let it go. Zhu Kunjin could not laugh anymore. Once any spell is launched, it is difficult to retract it. Not to mention the space spell cast by Elder Kyan. Zhu Kunjin had never seen or heard of the black hole space that could suck grow into it, but it did not affect his knowledge of its horror. The reason why Elder Kyan aged so quickly was because casting a spell required the extraction of huge spiritual power. The hollowed out body had no spiritual power to maintain it, so it naturally showed the appearance of decay that it should have. But since the trick had been launched, it was meaningless to call it a halt halfway. Zhu Kunjin stared at Grow, who was dragged into the black hole bit by bit, hoping that the process would end quickly. Can Grow be completely dragged in before Kyan Leo is exhausted? Zhu Kunjin hoped that everything would go well, but looking at Kyan Leo's condition, he was not sure. Kyan Leo's expression was still indifferent, not changing at all, but his skin had loosened, and large patches of age spots appeared. His upper eyelids drooped, covering most of his bright eyes. But he still stood straight, hanging in the air with his gestures motionless. Lezing King and Kyan Sua Lord arrived one after another. Seeing this situation, they frowned fiercely, but did not say much, and stayed quietly aside. Why don't they help him? The general manager shouted. He was originally very happy to see the other 2 big guys appear, but the imagined scene of joining forces did not come as expected. Different paths. And Kyan Leo did not ask for help. Zhu Kunjin sighed secretly. This means that he has to take on the responsibility alone. If other people disturb him, it will be more likely to cause trouble. What trouble? The general manager was puzzled. At this time, isn't it true that the more helpers you have, the less effort you will have? This big guy's in a special situation. Zhu Kunjin did not elaborate, and replied in a general way. In short, what we think is a dangerous situation may be a rare opportunity for him. Opportunity? The general manager couldn't understand. Looking at the old face on the screen, his body hunched slightly. But, he is like that. Is there really no danger? Of course there is danger. Zhu Kunjin kept rubbing his 2 fingers. If this goes on, even if Grow was successfully dragged into the black hole, there is a great possibility that Mr. Kyan will run out of spiritual power and die. And the opportunity, he said, is just a small possibility. The possibility of breaking down, and then building up, and turning disaster into blessing. Mr. Kyan cultivates the way of all living beings. Theoretically, when he saves the world with his own body, resolves this world-destroying disaster, and saves all living beings, there is a certain possibility that he can break through himself and advance to a high level that he originally could not cross. In this way, the problem of the 5 decays of the heavenly being will naturally be solved, and his ability will be even stronger. However, this kind of world-destroying disaster is something that can only be encountered by chance. Even if it is encountered, the possibility of successfully advancing is very small. It is so small that everyone knows that there is such a feasible method that only remains in theory and has infinite risks, but it is directly ignored. This is also the reason why Zhu Kunjin has not told Kyan Leo before. Kyan Leo also cherishes his life. before the last moment of his life. Since there is a more reliable way, it is obviously better to retreat and wait for the opportunity than to risk his life. But since he has come out of retreat, the opportunity has been presented to him. With the right time, right place and right people, Kyan Leo will naturally not shrink back. When he didn't see Groshi, he didn't have any idea of dying together. But when he blocked that attack just now, the attack power reflected by the mirror made him know that this thing was obviously not something Lan Crossing could resist at the moment. Just like what Lin Xiaoyao said, he can block it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, but more than that. As long as there is a mistake, the result cannot be reversed. It would take time to completely close the barrier. They might not be able to intercept all such beam attacks. Old Kyan wanted to solve the problem once and for all, to open a space gap and make Gro disappear quickly in the starry sky. He knew it was not easy, but it was the most effective way. When he increased the traction and really started to fight Gro, he felt that it was more difficult than he thought. Opening the space was already very costly, and he had to drag Gro in at full speed. Old Kyan's pressure suddenly increased, and he suddenly felt that this matter did not seem so easy. The rapid consumption of spiritual power made him feel a sense of urgency and crisis, but there was no turning back. It was impossible to cancel, and he could only continue. As Gro entered the black hole little by little, he felt that his physical condition was getting worse and worse. At the same time, he also remembered the risky move of being abandoned in the corner. Anyway, it was already like this, so he might as well fight. So, he told ZHU Kunjin, and also sent a message to Lezeng Yuanking and Black Cat Kyansu, asking them not to interfere. Whether he could take the opportunity to break through the constraints, success or failure depended on this. Therefore, when Lezeng Yuanking and Kyansu arrived, although they were surprised at his risky move, they had no intention of intervening. After all, everyone chooses their own path. ZHU Kunjin certainly had no position to stop him, and could only pray silently in his heart. Danger always comes with opportunity. He gritted his teeth as he watched Gro being dragged into the black hole by almost 1/5. The general heard it, and thought that the opportunity he was talking about was Gro's current situation, and he didn't know what to say. As the commander-in-chief, he certainly hoped that the culprit Gro disappeared. Since the people from the Special Affairs Office dared to do it, they should be sure of it. ZHU Kunjin didn't dare to report to the higher-ups. All of this was a gamble. Instead of making everyone panic all day long, it's better to wait for the final result. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Gro was dragged into the black hole little by little. The projection in the air clearly showed the current progress. Although it was slow, Gro's huge body did enter the black hole little by little. In the space agency, someone accidentally glanced at the external detection receiving device while watching the real-time projection. The display above forced his head back from watching the live broadcast. Something seemed wrong. He felt something was wrong and walked closer to the equipment to check. He rubbed his eyes. Suddenly his eyes widened and he shouted, "UFO! Another UFO is approaching." The people from the space agency ignored the live broadcast and gathered around. Where did the UFO come from? Did you see it right? Everyone talked at once, and after they confirmed the content of the screen, they were all speechless. Behind the moon, a UFO was really detected. The outline was clear, almost reminiscent of a spaceship, but it was not as big as Gro, and it was approaching Langsing. Gro was not near the moon, and no new UFOs could be seen in its live broadcast. The head of the space agency watched the live broadcast, and Gro was swallowed by the black hole by 1/5 of its volume, and reported to the main control. Chapter 619 Another unidentified flying vehicle. What? When the chief received the news that another UFO had appeared, he almost flipped the table. The WAV form is basically confirmed. Judging from the speed, it should be a powered aircraft. The route is also basically confirmed. It is heading for us. The Space Administration reported seriously. The specific situation is still uncertain. What is called when it rains, it pours. The chief rubbed his hands together, pondered for a moment, and asked, "Where is Xingchen?" After Gro couldn't help, the two bosses ran away. After knowing that they were continuing the cleaning work just now, the chief also sent Xingchen away from Kyan Leo. The girl's psychological quality is not very good. Watching a person aging instantly is not good for her. The subordinate reported Xingchen's location. The chief pondered for a while and called the old man. Sent Xingchen to take a look. With Gro's example in front of him, the chief dared not be careless about the new UFO. It would be too late when the other party arrived in front of land crossing. Without a space telescope, he could only think of Xingchen if he wanted to find out the situation as soon as possible. Xingchen was already familiar with the low Earth orbit. If the other party was near the moon, it was completely within the detection range of Xingchen. Let Xingchen take a look from afar to see what was coming so that they could prepare early. The old man thought about it for a while and nodded in agreement. So Lin Fan was temporarily transferred away again to explore space. When he left this time, the barrier had been deployed to more than half of the area. In less than an hour, when the barrier is fully deployed, whether it is Grower or something else, the people on Langsing will no longer have to be terrified. Lin Fan felt a little comforted in his heart and followed the coordinates given by the main control and flew towards the moon. When she knew that another unidentified flying object appeared, she felt an indescribable strangeness in her heart. In the early years, when aerospace technology was developed, there were also many arguments about other life forms in space. Many probes were also launched, and they are still roaming in unknown places, spreading information about Langsing civilization everywhere. Why was there no movement before? Why did they suddenly come in such large numbers this time? Gro was sure that they were not good guys. Now, was this new UFO coming to Langsing with the same aggression as Gro? Or was it coming to Gro? Lin Fan was flying rapidly in the dark space. The space was still as dark as before, with stars flickering and floating, but compared to before, those countless satellites were almost nowhere to be seen. The starry sky was still the same starry sky, but Langsing was no longer the same Langsing. Lin Fan sighed and suddenly thought of the space station that had been evacuated earlier. Fortunately, they had made preparations early, otherwise the astronauts inside would have definitely died in the previous wave of satellite rain. In the quiet space, Lin Fan could only hear her own breathing. Amidst all kinds of random thoughts, she saw the target. Report. Target found. Lin Fan was alert and no longer in the relatively relaxed state before. She threw out her spear and moved forward slowly and alertly, ready to take action or evacuate at any time. Strangely enough, she thought that after entering space and getting away from Langsing, the communication system might have no signal, but it turned out to be still usable. What is the principle? Lin Fan was surprised for a moment, but didn't think about it carefully. It was probably the work of the World Tree again. Be careful, safety first, the chief said in a deep voice. Understood. Lin Fan swallowed his saliva, held the spear tightly, and continued to move forward. At the current distance, it can only be seen that it is a spaceship, but it is not clear what it looks like. Since she has come here, she can't just go back and report, right? At least get closer. Lin Fan was moving forward while giving herself courage, and she was already imagining countless reactions and escape directions after the conflict. But she suddenly found that the spaceship seemed to stop moving after entering her field of vision. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Lin Fan couldn't judge, so he asked the main control. It's a good thing, at least in terms of attitude. It's not as aggressive as Gro. The main control was actually not sure. This thing, who can tell until the last moment? But Lin Fan felt that it made sense, so she felt more at ease, more courageous, and more relaxed in her actions. Specifically, she rushed forward faster. From a distance, the flying object looked like a long, flat shuttle-shaped structure, but when you get closer, you will find that its structure is not regular. It is neither like Gro, but a huge mechanical organization, nor like an ordinary ship-shaped or airplane-shaped aircraft. Lin Fan was ready to get closer to see it more clearly, but the other party suddenly moved. She quickly raised her gun to defend herself, but found that the other party turned around and ran away. Until the other party was getting farther and farther away from her, Lin Fan still stood there with her gun raised, not understanding what was going on. Do you want to chase? She asked stupidly. The chief was also completely confused about this situation, but it was always good to have no threat. No, come back quickly. Lin Fan looked at the aircraft that had instantly turned into a smaller one and still didn't understand. But she had not forgotten Gro's situation and did not dare to stay in space for too long, so she hurried back. I don't know what happened to Mr. Khan. Did she come out this time just to confirm that there are new flying objects? Lin Fan thought as he flew. If a new UFO can appear silently near the moon, does that mean that at least one external channel of the solar system has been opened? There is one, Gro. There is two, the one just now, so there may not be a third. Lin Fan quickly reported his thoughts to the higher-ups, and the reply he got from the main control was that they also mobilized some radio telescopes and began to observe the external situation. Lin Fan breathed a sigh of relief. Although he knew that, even if the situation could be observed in time, Langsing might not be able to resist. But it was better than being in the dark. The green barrier membrane on Langsing was almost connected as a whole, and Lin Fan was very happy watching it in space. As long as the barrier was formed, they would not have to fear anything. Hurry up. She had to go back quickly. Don't be locked outside and can't go back. Lin Fan hurried and finally returned to the atmosphere before the barrier was completely closed. The moment the barrier closed, a layer of green light film on the outer ring of the atmosphere of Langsing lit up with dazzling light and then dimmed. The originally eye-catching green light column also became thinner and darker, no longer as eye-catching as before. Inside Langsing, which was wrapped in the barrier, a thin amount of spiritual energy was scattered from the ground and the sky, spreading throughout the air. This is. The field officers of the Special Affairs Office who were still defending in various cities were stunned when they felt the scattered spiritual energy in the air that was different from before. They used their supernatural powers in doubt and found that the speed at which their bodies recovered spiritual power was much faster than before, which was simply unbelievable. Even more unbelievable than them were the people in front of the screen. They watched helplessly as the barrier was formed, and the remnants of Gro who had not been cleared inside Langsing all died in an instant, and the aircraft also completely lost power and fell directly. They had worked so hard for so long, and had been troubled for countless days. At this moment, the difficulties completely disappeared. The barrier, is it so powerful? The fight is over, no more, and the transition will be a daily plot later. I have to repair the angle valve under the wash basin today. It has been dripping for a few days, and I thought the faucet was not closed properly. Later, I thought the water pipe was not tightened. After wrapping it with duct tape and tightening it again, it still leaked. It might be a problem with the angle valve. When I renovated it, I bought good parts, and the workers didn't know it when they replaced it. The angle valve looks very cheap. There are 2 drawers under the wash basin. No one will look at them unless there is a problem. Everyone should pay attention during the renovation. The workers will replace the hardware. When I bought the faucet, I found that there was a 1-year warranty for the engineering fee, which is probably mine. From this point of view, it has been leaking for 7 years, which is considered a long life. Considering that this place will be dismantled soon, I bought a ceramic core. In fact, copper is better. I hope that the parts can be replaced successfully today and there will be no problems. Chapter 620 Victory. Things ended too suddenly, just like Gro suddenly appeared and launched an attack, and no one reacted. Before this, they didn't know how much they wanted to completely destroy these ghosts. But when this moment really came, everyone was caught off guard. Everyone's breathing seemed to be stilled. After repeatedly confirming that the matter was true, the cheers like a tsunami almost overturned the roof. Even the bosses of various departments who always maintained their status could not help but hug the people next to them. Many of them were old, unshaven and crying. The general manager leaned back heavily on the chair, looking at the bright lights on the ceiling and the noisy noise, and felt relieved. Lin Fan also heard the good news in the headset, and was very happy. What about Gro? How is Mr. Khan? She still remembered that Mr. Khan's condition was not good before, and she was determined to rush to him. Since all the enemies on Langsing have been resolved, the only hidden danger is Gro, who is being swallowed by the black hole outside. The people who were overwhelmed by the huge joy remembered that the matter had not been completely resolved. Looking back at Mr. Khan's position, the old man had dropped his hands at some point and stood quietly in the air. In the projected image, Gro had somehow regained his power and was accelerating to escape from the black hole. The black hole was also shrinking rapidly and would soon be completely closed. What was going on? Everyone was talking about it. They thought Gro would be dragged into the black hole and then disappear without a trace. How did he escape again? The chief had to ask ZHU Kunjin again. It's the barrier. ZHU Kunjin looked at Gro, who was escaping, and breathed a sigh of relief. After the barrier was formed, it blocked Mr. Khan's spell. Since it is a protective barrier, it naturally has the ability to block everything. The boss's spell was obviously within its blocking range. ZHU Kunjin has always been worried about Mr. Khan. Such a large energy output is obviously not something Mr. Khan can afford. So when the spell was blocked and Gro lost his restraint and fled out, he was relieved. The 1 in a million chance of promotion is really just a 1 in a billion chance. Moreover, it was obvious that Khan Leo's physical strength could not last long enough to completely drag the huge Gro into the black hole. Even if the barrier was not blocked, this matter would still be. But as Gro escaped, his worries rose again. If such a big hidden danger was not dealt with, would there be other problems? Those who knew that it was the barrier that blocked the big boss's spell, but did not know the truth, looked at each other in bewilderment. I had hoped that the barrier would open quickly before, but now I regret it. If it could be opened a little later, it would be better to wait until Gro was completely inside before forming. Even if those bad guys on Langsing were allowed to linger for a while, it would be better than letting Gro run away. But the fact is that it is impossible to get everything you want. Khan Leo seemed to not care at all, still standing in the air, looking at the mirror so quietly. After a period of chaos, everyone focused their attention on the place where Khan Leo was concerned. Look, the black hole is closing. Someone exclaimed in surprise. Without Khan Leo's control, the traction disappeared, and the black hole naturally would not continue to expand and open, but slowly close. Although Gro was escaping at full speed, he had been sucked in too much before. At the speed at which the black hole was closing, he had no way to escape unscathed. Everyone was excited again. Gro, who was partially swallowed by the black hole, would not have a good outcome. The closing of the black hole happened quietly, without bright flames or fierce explosions. But the quarter of Gro that had not yet been withdrawn seemed to have been wiped out by an eraser and disappeared completely. As expected, the scene of the entire Gro explosion and destruction did not appear. Only the scattered objects from the broken part, which scattered all the way after Gro accelerated, proved that something had really happened just now. Everyone's heart was lifted again. Although Gro lost a quarter of his torso, it did not seem to be seriously injured. Judging from the speed at which he moved, it seemed that there was no major impact. Now the black hole has disappeared, and it is impossible for it to appear again. ZHU Kunjin had said long ago that the barrier was mainly for protection and was not strong against external attacks. If Gro recovered, he would want to retaliate again. Although the barrier has been opened, it is still unknown whether it can resist Gro's attack. Moreover, even if it can resist, it is not a solution to keep it outside and watch without hitting Gro. Various worries came to mind, and everyone held their breath and waited. Unexpectedly, Gro was really scared. He didn't dare to stop for a moment and ran directly in the direction of acceleration. Everyone looked at the large pieces of unknown things scattered in the space that fell from Gro. They really didn't expect this turn. Is it safe now? Did he really run away? He won't come back, right? Khan Leo's live camera kept following Gro's direction. Everyone stared at it until he couldn't see it anymore. The space agency continued to broadcast the signal and confirmed that Gro opened the space jump and disappeared nearby. After a short silence, cheers rang out again, and it lasted for a long time. Gro's departure put an end to this crisis. Although Langsing suffered a heavy blow, everything was still salvageable. Because the major cities of Country H were protected by small barriers in time, although there were some damages, they were mostly in remote areas with few people, and could be almost ignored. As for other G countries, except for the few large G countries with vast land and sparse population, the losses were remarkable. Although the small G countries with relatively dense populations also received help from Country H, the ground was already in a mess. Fortunately, the casualties were not that serious. But whether this is good or not depends on where it is. Countries like Country H can almost recover to their previous state in a very short time. But those G countries whose infrastructure is completely destroyed and where water, electricity, and food are unknown, will have a headache. But at this moment, no one thought about that. The entire upper echelons of Lansing, staring at the big screen, were all immersed in great joy. We won. We won. As they laughed, the topic changed. They picked up a ready-made advantage by driving Grow away, and beautified it as their own credit. Of course, Grow's being forced to leave was inseparable from the scary black hole. The Kyandaleo who cast the spell was indeed from Land Crossing. In that case, the rounding would not be wrong. The old man leaned back in his chair, and he took off his glasses and placed them on the table the moment the matter was settled. He smiled, rubbed the bridge of his nose to relieve his fatigue, and then made a phone call. Zio-sen, the plan is cancelled. Sen Fangyuan also learned the good news of Grow's retreat outside, and was about to confirm the next move with the old man, so he naturally agreed with a smile. In addition, the old man immediately ordered, select a suitable video and edit it. It's time to let the people know this good news. It's time for everyone to celebrate. Soon, the people waiting in the underground bunker saw the victory news from various channels. At this moment, Land Crossing was really boiling. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 621 Aging. After the celebration of victory, the final reconstruction work officially began. The people in the underground of H country were immersed in the joy of victory. The TV and the internet repeatedly played the beautiful scenes of the mechas such as Xingqian and the supernatural people headed by the senior brother and Kyan Leo. They fought against the enemy neatly and ran all over the world to rescue. The figures of H country people were everywhere. Comparing the war damage of H country and other G countries. Under the overwhelming video propaganda, everyone's national confidence has grown to the extreme. They showed great cooperation in cleaning the ground and could not go home immediately. They had to stay underground for a while. After the logistics department cleaned up the alien debris that affected the normal life of the city as quickly as possible, the people in the basement returned home one after another. They saw almost intact urban buildings along the way. When they returned home, they had complete water and electricity and sufficient daily necessities. The days when they hid in the basement before seemed to be just a trip to a special place. Looking at the internet, other G country netizens broke the news that their homes were reduced to ruins and the happiness of H country people was overflowing. Many young people took photos of their current situation and posted them online. After seeing them, those suffering netizens from around the world were extremely envious. In the past, they always liked to mock H country for being poor and backward. Now that their homes have been destroyed and their infrastructure is in a mess, they have begun to live a frugal life. On the contrary, people in H country have no worries about food and clothing, as if they have never experienced an alien invasion. In contrast, their originally high-ranking position has now completely reversed. Why can H country do this when encountering the same thing, but they can't? Foreign people who are short of food and clothing began to condemn their G country. The question of how to successfully immigrate to H country soon appeared on the internet, and many people liked and forwarded it, and it soon became popular all over the world. Because H country has the most complete supplies, and because H country has the most feared hard power, even P country had to bow its head and ask H country for help. Of course, the old man must uphold the basic principle of being a good person, but what a good person should do is of course up to him. Of course, these are all later stories. The various arguments of the upper class have nothing to do with Lin Fan. She was very worried about Mr. Kyan. Because the spell was interrupted by the barrier, Mr. Kyan's spiritual power was not completely drained, but the remaining part of his body was not enough to restore him to his original state. When Lin Fan arrived, he only saw him hunched over, and he even staggered when he fell from the air. Lin Fan hurried to help him and retreated the Mecha just before touching him. Mr. Kyan was originally very tall, and Lin Fan had to look up slightly when he looked at him. Now his tall figure curled up, and Lin Fan held his cold hand and even felt a slight tremor. The long white hair also lost its luster, like a pool of dried oil paint. Lin Fan even had to lower her head to see his expression. "Mr. Khan." She opened her mouth and found that her voice was trembling and crying. "It's little friend Lin." Mr. Khan turned around and looked at her with a kind smile. That face, that smile, was obviously no different from the old man Khan in Lin Fan's impression, but it was completely different. The old man in front of him had dry skin on his face, and large patches of age spots made him look even worse. Under the drooping eyelids, the black pupils were barely visible. His voice was not as gentle as before, with the unique breath of an elderly person, as if there was something wrong with his throat, and he was unable to speak. Lin Fan's eyes were sore, and tears welled up again, but she suppressed them fiercely. Crying is useless. Hold it back. "How are you, Mr. Khan? Are you feeling okay?" Lin Fan held Mr. Khan's hand tightly, wanting to help, wanting to hug, but not knowing what to do. "Don't worry, my friend." Mr. Khan seemed to have no idea of his own situation, and comforted Lin Fan calmly. "Everything is fate, let it go." Cough cough. Lin Fan hurriedly patted Mr. Khan's back, and it felt like bones when she touched it. The vibration of the cough was transmitted to Lin Fan's palm along the bones. She pouted and called Zhu Kunjun. They were some distance away from Gao, and it would take some time for Zhu Kunjun to send a plane to pick them up. Lin Fan simply transformed into a star again, picked up Mr. Khan in a princess hug, and flew to the special affairs office at a relatively suitable speed. It was also the first time for old Khan to see Xingchen in person. After being surprised by being hugged, he kept looking at Xingchen with gentle eyes. "Little friend Lin's Mecha is really beautiful." Lin Fan looked down at old Khan and thought of his grandmother. She was also a gentle old lady who always praised her beauty softly. Then suddenly one day, the news of her death came. Lin Fan couldn't help but shed 2 lines of tears in the Mecha. Old Khan also seemed to be unable to resist the fatigue. She quickly closed her eyes and leaned on Xingchen's shoulder. The sky gradually darkened, just like Lin Fan's current mood. The street lights came on one after another, but they couldn't shine into her heart. Not long after flying, he met the eldest brother. He stepped on the sword and approached, frowned, and looked at the situation of old Khan. Then he rolled his hand, and old Khan was in his hand. "I'll take it, you're too slow," he said, and left directly, and the flying sword under his feet was as fast as a flash of lightning. Lin Fan hurriedly accelerated to catch up. The eldest brother added a windshield to old Khan, so no matter how fast he went, he couldn't interfere with him. Lin Fan didn't have such means, so he could only fly slowly. Halfway through the journey, Master Kaiensu also caught up, took a look at the situation of old Khan, and followed closely without saying a word. With the rapid journey, the distance of thousands of miles was also within reach. However, the eldest brother did not bring the person back to the special affairs office, but followed Master Kaiensu to the cave of the ugly woman. Lin Fan was stunned for a moment, and between going in, it might anger the ugly woman, and not going in, worrying about old Khan, she chose the former. The ugly woman's cave was not much different from the last time she came. The eldest brother held old Khan, and entered the cave smoothly under the notification of Master Kaiensu. Lin Fan saw Jin Sichin guarding the entrance of the cave, and after whispering a few words to him, he knew that the ugly woman was still staying in front of the world tree, and it was highly likely that he could not take care of her. After entering, Kaiensu had obviously finished communicating with the ugly woman, and was walking away from her. The ugly woman was indeed sitting cross-legged facing the world tree as Jin Sichin said. The few of them came in, and it seemed that they did not cause any interference to her. "Put him in." The black cat walked to Lezing King and whispered, "This living water has a repairing function. Putting him in will be good for him." Lezing King was looking at the green leaves in the room. Hearing what Master Kaiensu said, he glanced at the motionless female clown, and gently put him into the water. Old Khan had not woken up. After being put down by Lezing King, he slid down, and lay down in the water. Even his mouth and nose were immersed in the water. Lin Fan wanted to reach out to pull him, but was grabbed by Lezing King. "Don't worry, he won't die." Master Kaiensu glanced back at her, and licked his paw. "I've made an agreement with the queen. to borrow her place for the old guy to recuperate. Let's go back. After saying that, he walked out first, wagging his tail. Lin Fan looked at old Khan who was sinking in the water, then looked at the unresponsive female clown in the room full of green, knowing that there was indeed no more suitable place to recuperate than here, and walked out with his head turned back every few steps. Lin Fan. Outside the cave, Jin Sichin was still waiting for him. Don't worry, I'm still here. Lin Fan nodded, with no trace of joy on her face, because of Gro's retreat. Jin Sichin patted her shoulder. I'll stay here for a while. I'm fine. Don't worry. Lin Fan knew what he was going to say, and smiled. Take care of yourself. Jin Sichin saw a lot in her smile, but didn't say much. He put his arm around her shoulders, and sent her out. When Lin Fan went out of the cave, Master Kaiensu and the eldest senior brother had already disappeared. She looked at the sky, which was pitch black, and she couldn't even see a star. Suddenly, she felt the back of her head and back start to hurt again. What I want to express is that success is never easy to achieve, and it always comes at a huge price. Chapter 622. Doing stupid things again. Human senses are really very strange. Before, Lin Fan made all kinds of big movements in the sky, and her body was obviously in more pain, but she felt nothing. Now she stood quietly, doing nothing, but the fine and dense pain was like being pricked by needles, and it was like being bitten by something's sharp teeth. It was hard to tell whether it was pain or itchiness, but she felt it was unbearable. She flew back to the special office as fast as she could, rushed into the room inside her office, tore off her combat uniform, turned on the faucet in the bathroom, turned on the hot water to the maximum, and stood under it to take a shower. In her impression, she vaguely remembered that hot or cold compresses could relieve pain. After all, it was the coldest time of the year, and even if the special office was warm, her first instinct was not to take a cold shower. The bathroom was soon steaming, and the hot water, that was a little hot for ordinary people, was still too hot for her current skin. Originally, it was painful and itchy like needles, and now the hot water was flushed, the whole back began to burn. Lin Fan found that she was wrong, and quickly turned the faucet to cold water. The rapid change in water temperature made her body shiver involuntarily, but the effect was also obvious. The burning sensation and fine itching soon disappeared. Lin Fan gritted her teeth, and showered in cold water. She couldn't remember the last time she took a cold shower. It seemed to be in junior high school, but it must have been a hot summer. The cold water didn't last too long, and her whole body was freezing. Although the pain disappeared temporarily, the excessively cold body temperature made her feel very uncomfortable. Lin Fan's teeth chattered and panted. She was very suspicious that if she continued, she might get sick. Finally, she turned off the faucet and came out. It was just asking for trouble. She shivered all over, feeling that everything was out of control. She didn't bother to dry herself. She shivered and wrapped herself in a bathrobe and ran to the warm bed. The steam in the bathroom had long been washed away by the cold water. When she passed the mirror, she also caught a glimpse of her miserable head. It was so clear that she couldn't help but stop and look at it for a few more times with her trembling hands and feet. Then she didn't want to look in the mirror anymore. After finally entering the warm room, the appropriate heating actually made her cold skin feel stinging again. Lin Fan could no longer care about so much, shivering and diving into the bed, wrapping herself up with the quilt. Damn, this method doesn't work. What else can I do? Eat? No, eating can replenish energy and physical strength, but it won't relieve the pain that much. There was a knock on the door, and Wu Yusen's voice came from outside. Lin Fan, are you in there? Lin Fan came back, and rushed into his room. They couldn't figure out what was going on. Come in. Lin Fan shouted, but afraid that no one outside could hear him, he struggled to pull open a crack in the quilt. As soon as his face was exposed, he made eye contact with Wu Yusen, who opened the door. Wu Yusen was shocked to see Lin Fan's lips turn purple, and he fell down and rushed over. What's wrong? He reached out and touched Lin Fan's face as if he had touched an ice cube. Why is it so cold? What's wrong with your body? He got up and turned up the temperature in the room and touched the soft bed. For the first time, he regretted not getting an electric blanket for Lin Fan. To be honest, the central air conditioning in the special office is always on all year round, and the temperature is just right in winter and cool in summer. Electric blankets are really not used on a regular basis. Lin Fan felt much better after covering herself for a while. At least she didn't tremble when she spoke, so she told him about the stupid thing she had done. Wu Yusen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He dragged one of her feet out of the quilt, put it on his legs with the cuff, and rubbed it quickly with both hands. You. He looked at the girl who was wrapped in the quilt with only her face exposed, and felt extremely wronged. He seemed to see the weak and helpless Lin Xiaogui again, and shook his head and sighed. Lin Fan was a little embarrassed at first. Her legs were pulled out by Wu Yusen to be rubbed, and she was not wearing any clothes yet. Wasn't this a bit too intimate? But her legs, which had been so cold that she had no feeling at all, soon regained their warmth in Wu Yusen's hands. She could even feel the itch on the soles of her feet. It was indeed very comfortable. Lin Fan gave up resisting and just lay there, letting Wu Yusen rub her limbs to warm them up. The room temperature was set very high. Wu Yusen was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and was covered in sweat. Lin Fan's body temperature was basically normal. He saw that Lin Fan had closed her eyes and had fallen asleep without knowing when. He helped her cover the quilt and gently got up. Unexpectedly, as soon as the bed moved, Lin Fan immediately turned over and sat up, staring at him fiercely with bloodshot eyes, and her arm had already stretched out in front of his neck. Wu Yusen felt a pain in his heart and smiled as he pulled down Lin Fan's wrist. Does it hurt? It would have been better if he hadn't said it. As soon as he said it, it was as if a strange switch had been turned on, and the pain surged up again. Hiss. Lin Fan bared his teeth, sat back on the bed, and pulled up his loose collar. Does it still hurt? Wu Yusen was just joking at first, but seeing Lin Fan's reaction, he couldn't let it go. Are you still going to sleep? If not, go see Wenji. Forget it. Lin Fan shook his head. I can't sleep. Let's go see a doctor. This kind of pain is not particularly serious, but it is like a maggot attached to the bone, which makes it hard to ignore, especially when there is nothing else to do, and you can't concentrate. Okay, then get up. Wu Yusen went out the door directly. You change clothes. I'll wait for you outside. Lin Fan thought that he would need treatment later, so he wore a backless tank top and shorts, a long silk nightgown with flowers printed on it, a woolen hat with pom-poms on his head, and opened the door in flip-flops. Wu Yusen was also stunned by this outfit, and smiled silently as he led the way. My hair, I have to trim it later. Lin Fan muttered behind him. It's too ugly. Wu Yusen nodded and said yes. I didn't have time to take care of it before. I'll take you to the barber shop after the treatment. Or do you want to go now? Wait a minute. Let's find a doctor first. Lin Fan touched the tie on her robe boredly. Your hair is already like this. If you go later, maybe it will grow longer. She said self-deprecatingly, but Wu Yusen couldn't laugh when he thought about how her hair was gone. By the way, are the senior brother and the 1000-year-old master back? Lin Fan asked again. There should be no need to worry about the safety of these two people, but at least the three of them left together before, so asking her would be reassuring. The senior brother is back, but the 1000-year-old master is not. I don't know where he went. Wu Yusen waited for 2 steps and walked side by side with her, but this time the 1000-year-old master's communicator is on. If there is anything, at least we can tell him in time. As for whether he would agree or not, that was another matter. Lin Fan nodded and asked about the situation of other people in the institute, whether everyone was okay, etc. Wu Yusen also answered one by one. In this operation, the dispatched staff of the Special Affairs Office were injured but not killed, and the injuries were minor and did not cause any serious damage to the bones. In addition, after the barrier was opened, the spiritual energy was abundant, and many people who were short of spiritual energy were blessed and promoted to a higher level. Really? There is such a good thing. Lin Fan didn't know about this situation. Chapter 623 Cyber Cultivation. Of course it's true. Wu Yusen smiled. It turns out that the barrier of the world tree has not only a protective function, but also a function of replenishing spiritual energy. So everyone hates Kuafu now. If Kuafu hadn't sealed Nchao back then, let alone the development of science and technology. The spiritual energy brought by the world tree alone would be enough to turn the world of Langsing upside down. Just these few hours of spiritual power made the supernatural people in the Dharma-ending age feel the joy of full and plump tendons. If they had been immersed in such a world with abundant spiritual energy for thousands of years, how could they be so scarce that they had to hide underground? Moreover, the director said that such abundant spiritual energy may change the world situation. Wu Yusen said again. What changes? Lin Fan was curious. Isn't it that the H country is firmly in the first seat, and the other G families have to call him Big Brother no matter whether they are convinced or not? It's not what you think. Wu Yusen knew what she was thinking at a glance. After the spiritual energy is full, it is much easier to sense the spiritual energy than before. There will be more people who can absorb the spiritual energy. You mean? Lin Fan widened his eyes. Is this the era of universal cultivation? Wow. Lin Fan's heart was surging. On the one hand, the whole nation is cultivating immortals, various spells and flying swords, and the declining cultivation system will begin to prevail. On the other hand, high technology will also develop. Under the strong pull of the world tree, Langsing technology will be on the right track. Think about the future. Taxis will not drive on the ground, but fly directly into the sky. People don't have to walk, they can just run on the flying sword. There are all kinds of mechas, airships, and people stepping on various flying swords, and flying boats in the sky. On one side are high-tech cool intelligent machinery, and on the other side are extremely fantasy spells of wind, rain, thunder and lightning. What kind of cyber-cultivation era is this? Speaking of which, should she practice it too? It's not that exaggerated to say that all the people are cultivating immortals. Wu Yusen smiled. There shouldn't be that many people who can sense spiritual energy and eventually enter the path of cultivation. Although it has increased compared to before, it's not that easy. It's just that the matter of supernatural powers and cultivation should be popularized in front of the public. After all, the agency has released a lot of methods before, and there is no need to hide it now. It's good this way, so that we don't have to hide every time we go on a mission, as if we are doing something bad. Oh. Lin Fan nodded. But no matter what, cultivation should be done by our own people, right? Think of the blonde, black-skinned people sitting cross-legged and wielding spells. She's not discriminating, it's just that the picture is weird. Besides, when chanting spells, you can't use foreign languages, right? That may not be the case. But after all, we have more people. Wu Yusen showed his big white teeth. Yes, the population of H country is large. After this incident, the population of other places has been lost to some extent. In addition to various restrictions, the Special Affairs Agency is not selfless enough to send the cultivation methods to people from other countries. After all this, the country H will benefit in the end. So this is what the world pattern changes mean. Lin Fan's mind was turning quickly at this time. This is a good thing, a great thing. She patted Wu Yusen's shoulder. Let's try it later to see if there is any talent in this area. Wu Yusen looked at her with amusement. Your mecha is invincible, and you still want to practice? Will you let ordinary people live? Wu Yusen made up his mind as soon as he heard the news. He wanted to try to take the path of practice. It was too uncomfortable to watch Lin Fan suffer several times before, but he couldn't help. The strength he has always been proud of is not worth mentioning at the level of high technology and supernatural powers. He can't reach high technology for the time being. As a senior special agent of the Special Affairs Office, isn't it a good opportunity for him to practice? Wu Yusen wants to become stronger, and no longer have to watch the people he cares about suffer and be helpless. This time, there is finally a way for him to go. But she didn't expect that Lin Fan also wanted to join in the fun. Look at what you said. Lin Fan glanced at him. My half-baked level is always dangerous, right? More skills are better. Learn more. Who knows when it can save your life? At the critical moment, who can complain about having too many skills? When she was in school, she took a few more certificates just in case, so that she could use them at work. Although she didn't use them later. In short, learning more is always good. Besides, everyone went to practice, and she didn't go alone. Wouldn't it seem out of place? It can't be that she, the director of the Special Affairs Office, is behind the times because she doesn't understand these things. Anyway, no matter what the reason is, she will always try it, even if it's just for the curiosity in her heart. Wu Yusen also thought of Lin Fan's several crises. Although he felt that Mecha and cultivation were not compatible, just because they were not possible before did not mean they would not be possible in the future. Imagine the Mecha standing majestically in the air, gesturing with its Mecha hand, and sending out a "Forget it, it's too early to think about this now, let's talk about it later." He pushed open the door of Wenji's medical area and easily found someone. After listening to Lin Fan's symptoms, Wenji did all kinds of tests and found nothing wrong. According to his speculation, Lin Fan's injuries had not healed completely, and he ran to show his power, causing blood vessels to swell and stimulating various nerve endings inside. Lin Fan could understand it at first, but then he felt dizzy and started to look at the page content on the computer on the table next to him. There is no need to take painkillers in this situation. It's better to go soak in the running water. Wenji looked at Lin Fan's condition, and it didn't seem as bad as Wu Yusen said. In the end, he decided to defeat magic with magic. Live water? Lin Fan's attention finally turned. Yes, there is live water in the institute. After Jin Sichin went to serve the ugly woman, he earned a lot of benefits for them. Live water is one of them. After a period of research, the healing effect of live water has been confirmed. Especially for chronic injuries, the effect is really good. For example, addiction injuries like Kan Leo and Fallen Fan's current situation. Everything looks good, but everything is uncomfortable. Without worrying about the ugly woman's face, Lin Fan happily soaked in the pool of live water. The live water pool in the medical department is specially made. It not only has a heating function, but also has waves, massage and so on. It is like a sauna. See, I have foresight, right? She smiled at Wu Yusen, who was holding his outer robe outside. Wenji originally asked her to change into a swimsuit, but when Lin Fan pulled the robe, the suspender shorts were not much more material than the swimsuit, so Wenji did not force it. Wu Yusen saw that she was having fun, and he didn't know whether she forgot the pain or the running water had an effect, but he also laughed. After a while, the canteen brought food. Lin Fan took a sauna, ate and drank, and watched various clips of videos on TV. Maybe it was to lay the foundation for the whole people to cultivate immortals. The visual effects of the supernatural clips were originally strong, coupled with various clips and soundtracks. Lin Fan watched it like a small movie. There were also clips of mecha teams, ordinary artillery attacks, and various perseverance of ground soldiers. Of course, Xingqian's various heroic postures were also indispensable. Xingqian in the video was dashing and courageous, accompanied by various majestic music, like a hero in a movie, and Lin Fan herself was excited. Is it that powerful? She hugged the juice. Her face was a little red. Hehe, vanity suddenly arises. Wu Yusen saw her silly smile, thought of the text message he just received. His eyes darkened, and soon pretended that nothing happened. I remember when I first entered the Special Affairs Bureau, someone asked me to write about mecha cultivation. This plot, put here, is it natural and more reasonable? However, this book still takes Lin Fan as the protagonist, and will not focus on the whole people's cultivation. If there is a chance, it may be used as the background of other articles. Lin Fan will eventually go out, so he can practice here, which is arranged for Wu Yusen. Hehe, I'm still good to Xiao Wu. Chapter 624, Living Area News. The function of running water is really amazing. All the discomforts in Lin Fan's body disappeared quickly. She was not sure if there was any psychological effect in this, but she felt so comfortable that she did not want to get up. It was Wu Yusen who saw that the skin on her fingers was wrinkled and pulled her up. You can come back tomorrow if you feel comfortable. Do you still plan to sleep in it for a night? He carefully checked the skin on Lin Fan's back and found that it was just a little red, without any damage. He was relieved. You should be careful with your tender skin. Lin Fan thought about it, and it was true. Too much is as bad as too little. It is better to stop when you are ahead. It is impossible to sleep in the pool for a night. Not to mention whether it is safe or not. It is boring to stay in the water all the time. Although there is TV to watch, every channel is full of various flattering videos. She felt that her vanity was blown up. After returning to change into normal clothes, Wu Yusen took Lin Fan to the living area for a haircut. The living area of the special agency is so real that it does not seem to be underground. Except for the short stay, when Wu Yusen brought her back for the first time, Lin Fan basically did not come down afterwards. She didn't like shopping very much. The only time she went shopping were when Jin Sichin and her friends took people to the mall outside to buy things directly. Or Wu Yusen took her to look at houses outside. Although Lin Fan had long hair, she didn't take care of it specially. So when she entered the living area again, she felt nostalgic and fresh. Because the purpose was clear, Wu Yusen drove a small electric car and took her directly to a building that looked like a small shopping mall. Although it was called a small shopping mall, it was also 5 or 6 stories high and covered a large area. The facade was made of glass and the shape was fashionable. There was no difference between it and the shopping mall outside. Wu Yusen parked the car in the parking space of the square, turned off the power, pulled the handbrake and got out. Lin Fan got out of the car and looked at the 2-wheeled electric vehicles around. Their small 4-wheeled car parked here would undoubtedly be a huge conspicuous bag, so she asked worriedly, "Is it okay to park here?" Wu Yusen turned around and smiled, waving at her. "It's okay, this is a temporary car, everyone knows it, no one will cause trouble." Lin Fan quickened her pace and walked side by side with Wu Yusen, looking at the surrounding environment. It was dark. Under the illumination of the tall street lamps, the square was clear, but there were not many people. Lin Fan suddenly realized that it was getting late. When she came out of the Chow NV cave, the moon was already high in the sky. After returning, she went to the sauna again. It should be night now. Is the mall still open? But looking at the many electric cars around, it seems that there are still many people. She paused and asked. It was not, because the situation was tense a while ago, that no one wanted to spend money and have fun. Now that the overall situation has been determined, the mall decided to open all night, to let everyone have fun together. Wu Yusen knew about this situation, otherwise he would not have brought people here directly. Can it be like this? Lin Fan was shocked. Why not? The mall in our institute is different from the malls outside. It is not mainly for profit. The reason why it was built is to facilitate the people who live here so that they don't feel too disconnected from the outside world. Wu Yusen explained with a smile. All the public institutions here, hospitals, schools, and even the police booths on the corners. He turned his head and motioned Lin Fan to look at the side. Lin Fan followed his gaze and saw a small police booth. 2 uniformed men were sitting inside, not knowing what they were doing. These are all part of creating a realistic atmosphere. Of course, the functions and personnel are real, and the prices are basically the same, but the essence is very different from the outside. Lin Fan nodded, not quite understanding. It's just a fake world, but for the sake of reality, everything is consistent with the outside. In this way, if people need to frequently go in and out of the special office, they won't have unnecessary inconveniences due to these trivial matters of life. It's about the same. Wu Yusen lifted the bangs covering his eyes. The prices, food, water, and electricity in the living area are no different from those outside. However, the quality is special, although it's not top notch, but at least it's worth the money. In addition, the welfare in the office is good, so it's more comfortable than outside anyway. You get what you pay for. This idiom is really implemented in the living area of the special office. Lin Fan followed Wu Yusen into the mall and was immediately stunned by the lively atmosphere inside. The air was filled with the sweet smell of food, and the music was as cheerful as the new year. The crowd gathered together to sing and dance. It was so lively. Lin Fan leaned against the door with social phobia. Isn't this too lively? Wu Yusen protected her with one hand and walked towards the independent elevator. Your videos are playing in the atrium. How can people not be happy after watching them? Why are they everywhere? Lin Fan immediately thought of the ones she saw when she was soaking in the water, which were really played over and over again, like brainwashing. At first she was excited and happy, but after seeing too many, she felt embarrassed, and at the same time her vanity was greatly satisfied. She felt that this was not good, so Wu Yusen asked her to leave, and she stood up neatly, but in the end she couldn't avoid it anywhere. You'd better get used to it soon. Wu Yusen looked at her, let her into the elevator, and closed the door. I heard that the higher-ups want to set you up as a new role model, so Xingqian will have a very high exposure rate for a long time. Lin Fan saw that Wu Yusen's expression was very serious, and after thinking about it, she thought that this matter was not something she could interfere with, so she simply kept silent. Coming out of the elevator, along the long skywalk, when passing the central square, she saw a video of Xingqian playing on the huge screen. Lin Fan looked at the people cheering wildly below, but she felt no joy in her heart. It was obviously a good thing, right? Why didn't she feel so happy? And her heart was heavy. Let's go. Wu Yusen waited for her for a while before urging her. Lin Fan followed him reluctantly. It wasn't until the special fragrance entered her nose that she looked up and found that she had arrived at the barber shop. Wu Yusen was talking to someone, and she took the opportunity to look around. There were no customers in this barber shop, and the decoration looked quite expensive. It was the kind that she didn't dare to enter when she saw it before. This is Lin Fan. Wu Yusen had already led someone over. Minister Lin, I have heard of your name for a long time. The man next to him smiled and stretched out his right hand. He was in his 20s or 30s, with a gentle appearance, wearing a plaid cardigan sweater and a pair of loose casual trousers. He didn't look like a barber in the conventional impression, but rather a gentle teacher. Lin Fan was stunned for a moment, suspecting that this was the owner of the barber shop. Not knowing whether he was being polite, she stretched out her hand and shook his hand gently. You're welcome. Minister Lin's visit has brought honor to our shop. The man spoke sweet words. Come in please. The VIP room has been prepared for you. Lin Fan looked at the empty hall and wanted to say that it was not necessary to go through so much trouble. But the clerks outside were probably too idle, and they all stared at her with a look of embarrassment, so she backed down. Go into the private room. Go into the private room. It's better for fewer people to see the bald head. Chapter 625 Haircut. Lin Fan didn't have many choices for his hairstyle. Because the entire back of his head was new skin, the barber could only trim the uneven edges and shave everything below the edge. It doesn't look good now, but after a while, when it grows a little longer, it will look much better. The man Lin Fan thought was his teacher or boss was dancing with silver scissors in both hands and smiled gently. Don't worry. John Woo was sitting on a high stool next to him. Seeing Lin Fan's incredible look, he also smiled. In this area, if you want the best looking and fashionable hairstyle, you can't go wrong with him. Oh. Lin Fan glanced at John Woo, then looked at the barber in the mirror, who was not modest at all, but just smiled gently. Is he the best master here? The barbers Lin Fan had met in the past all had a special and fixed label, which made people know at a glance that this was Teacher Tony. Either they dress fashionably, or they wear a not so shameful but eye-catching hairstyle, or they start selling perms, hair dyes, and hair cards as soon as they sit down. In short, even if they are not in a barber shop, they are conspicuous bags that can be seen in the crowd at a glance. It is completely different from the one behind him, who has nothing to do with being a barber. In the circle of young people, his craftsmanship and aesthetics are the best. Seeing that the other party was not affected at all, Wu Yusen answered with his hands flying up and down, but among the older people, he is not the most popular. We still have those very old-fashioned barber shops here, and the masters there are more popular with the older people. Old-fashioned barber shops. Lin Fan was surprised. There are still such shops here? She had only seen very modern street scenes so far, and she never thought that there were such old-fashioned shops here. Of course, we have been here for decades. There are many old houses and shops. There is also a special old city area. It may not be possible today. I will take you for a walk next time, when you are free. Wu Yusen got the news from Jin Sichin, and knew that Lin Fan had some psychological problems. She hid it very well, but she could not hide it from Jin Sichin. But Jin Sichin could not come back in a short time, and the barrier of the ugly woman seemed to need some time to finish, so there was no way to systematically sort out Lin Fan's emotions. So Wu Yusen was specifically told to make Lin Fan happy, and not let negative and bad things affect her emotions. Because emotional problems are the result of accumulation. She temporarily covered up the previous few situations, but it does not mean that she can still handle any future situations. Okay. Lin Fan was also very interested. Are you free tomorrow? Let's go around during the day. The two extended this topic and chatted about all sorts of things. The barber also finished his work. Lin Fan had never shaved his hair so short before. The position 2 fingers wide above the ear was the dividing line, and the lower part was shaved completely. The hair that was originally of different lengths was cut into a finger wide short length, and a little longer hair was left in front of the forehead, making the whole head look less dull. Such short hair, if the back is not bald, with a layer of short stubble, is indeed a popular handsome guy hairstyle. It is actually quite good on a boy's head. People like Song Ren and Lee Chun-ho are quite suitable for such short hair. But it is really hard to describe on a girl's head, especially when there is a large bald spot on the back of the head. There is no androgynous handsomeness that is common in novels. Lin Fan looked at himself in the mirror and felt like another person. It was awkward, no matter how he looked at it. But no matter what, at least it was neat and tidy, which was much more pleasing to the eye than the scarred and bald head before. Lin Fan let out a long sigh. Never mind, it will be better if it is longer. Let's wear a hat for the time being. The barber saw her silently put the hat on her head, and a hint of embarrassment appeared on her face, and emphasized it again. It doesn't look good now. Wait a month, and when your hair grows longer, it will look good. When Minister Lin comes again, I will trim it for you. I guarantee it will look good. No matter how good your skills are, you still need hair. Lin Fan also knew that her head could not be saved, even if it fell into the hands of a god, so she didn't take it to heart at all. Seeing the uneasy look on the barber's face, she comforted him instead. It's okay, I think you look pretty energetic. It's just that it's cold, and your head feels cold without a hat. The barber didn't expect that Lin Fan's personality was completely different from that of Xingchen in the video. He smiled and sent them out of the store. Looking at the backs of the two people who left with ease and laughter, he posted a circle of friends. Lin Fan didn't like noise. After cutting her hair, she went back to the cafeteria with Wu Yusen. The chefs on duty were so happy that the food was served to the table. Lin Fan and Wu Yusen thanked them repeatedly. After the people left, she looked at the 3 tables of food and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What's wrong? It's not what you want to eat? Wu Yusen glanced at the food on the table. It seemed that they were all what Lin Fan often ate. I just wanted to have some midnight snacks. Lin Fan reluctantly opened his chopsticks. Now it's all in front of me. I have to eat it all. After eating all this, it was almost dawn. You are taking advantage of me and acting cute. Wu Yusen laughed, picked up a pair of chopsticks, and picked up a favorite food to eat with it. In the whole institute, even the director doesn't get such good treatment when he comes to the cafeteria. Okay. Lin Fan smiled, holding a mouthful of food in his mouth, and took out his cell phone. Look, it's already past 3, and it'll be 5 after we finish eating. I was planning to just eat a few bites and go back to sleep, get up at dawn, and resume a healthy routine. What's wrong with going to bed at 5? Wu Yusen smiled dotingly. Anyway, it's okay now. No one will say anything if you sleep for 24 hours. Forget it. Lin Fan rolled his eyes. If I really sleep for a whole day and night, you will definitely come and knock us, thinking that something has happened to me. Wu Yusen smiled and scratched the tip of his nose. This is true. Lin Fan opened the chat group again. No one was talking in it. The chat was still stuck on the past few days. I don't know what happened to Song Ren and the others. There is no news at all. Should I ask? Wu Yusen lowered his eyes. His heart tightened, and he was thinking about what to say to divert her attention, and then he heard Lin Fan say it himself. They must be sleeping at this time, so don't disturb them. Lin Fan convinced himself, put the phone aside, and continued to focus on the food. Wu Yusen took a deep breath in his heart, and then said, they must be exhausted. I heard that several people were exhausted the last time they boarded the plane. I guess 800 has also made some arrangements. You can let them rest for a few more days and contact us again. Yeah, they must be busier than me. Lin Fan nodded. Sometimes I also think that I can replenish energy by eating like this, and my talent for restoring physical strength is quite good. It's a pity that it can't be popularized. Speaking of popularization, Wu Yusen changed the subject. I heard that the armament department picked up a lot of equipment this time, and they can build a mecha core. Oh. Lin Fan didn't know the news. You mean the equipment picked up from Grow? It seems that they need to be rebuilt, but the raw materials are those that you shot down. They are all materials that Langsing doesn't have. The Minister of Armaments is very happy. After Wu Yusen finished speaking, he remembered something and added, I heard that the first generation of Mecha also needs to be rebuilt, and all the 818 inside must be extracted for you to absorb completely, and see if Xingqian can evolve again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.